Absolutely right. Carol did a work order on it.
That's what they fixed that last spring. And now it's not coming on until Good for the spring, it's about right.
Well, yeah.
I told her on that last time. I drew a little picture of the lights. That's her photo. I think it's probably.
Stand, please. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming this evening, being a part of the city's business meeting. I'm going to go ahead and get started. And the first order of business is an MRPC handoff of her award for Patricia Haney. And we have Mr. Miskell here, who is actually the chairman of the Merrimack Regional Planning Commission. And that's the group responsible for this. So, Larry, if you'd come forward, and Trish, if you'd come forward.
You too, young lady. The award's already been announced, and I think everybody has seen the citation, but I wanted to make sure that you...
Turn around, Larry, so the camera can get you.
I had my best side anyway. I just wanted to physically give you the award and say thank you for your service to Herman, and I thank the mayor for submitting you for the award, and it is well deserved.
Thank you. And thank you to you and the MRPC, of course, and for Mayor Cooper for nominating me for all your kind words. I sincerely appreciate all your support.
Well, thank you. And the MRPC is, Larry, you might fill in here, but they're an organization that we lean on quite heavily for grants, to help us write grants, to give us advice on grants, to tell us about grants, and also to work with MoDOT and the other agencies and so forth that we have to associate with. So thank you very much, and thank you.
You bet. Mayor, I want to give you a copy of the annual report.
Oh, thank you.
And the MRPC covers 8 counties. We're the farthest north county, and Herman obviously is the farthest north in the county. And this most southern part is Dent County, and the most west is Pulaski County, which for those who don't know is basically Fort Leonard area. So it's a huge operation. They do a lot for the municipalities, a lot for the counties, and I hope that even the aldermen would get more involved and look and see what they have. There's a lot more than grants. There's all kinds of mayors on the transportation committee. Mark's on the board, and there's a lot of information. And those of us attend the meetings, we know we come back with a lot of paperwork.
And their work is pretty good, too.
Yes, they do. Anyway,
Thank you, Larry.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Hold it, guys. Ain't nobody else taking a picture of this. I'm doing it. You see, cheese doodle or something here. Cheese doodle? Margarita. Okay.
Well, thanks, Larry. Appreciate it. Okay. Report. Well, it looks like I've misplaced my report, so I'm going to have to... Here it is. Thank goodness. Okay, well, thank you, Larry. That was very nice. We appreciate that. Second item I'd like to talk about a little bit, and I'm glad Melissa's here, is the letter that was in that I received. I don't know if it was on their website. It came to me from a member. And basically it was a very nice letter. And it talked about the Chamber's missions and goals and responsibilities, also difficulties in the Chamber's having in funding them. Well, don't feel bad, because everybody has trouble funding their goals, and including us. So we know how that is. Part of the letter that I want to talk about, though, is the Welcome Center. And as everyone knows, the Welcome Center is a very necessary component part of the tourism industry. It is the final step in welcoming visitors to our city, telling them what is happening here, and showing the locations. It is a necessity. There are several things in the city-chamber relationship that should be explained. The first thing is that over $60,000 per year of citizens' tax money is used to support tourism efforts by paying for the salary of the tourism director. This was never intended to be a long-term answer, but over the past 15 years, it has become an annual city expense. Second thing is the chamber is operating approximately $60,000 in deficit in their support of the Welcome Center. That was also, I'm sure, never intended to be that way. That's a lot of money for a Chamber of Commerce to put into something that is strictly tourism related. So it makes sense, and that brings me to the third item, that we might consider the lodging tax and increasing it as a source to fix both those problems. And that's what I'm talking about. If we did increase the lodging tax, we would have to put it on the ballot effective, I believe, something like January 18th or some date similar to that. And it would be on the April ballot, and voters would vote on it, city voters. And although it would say lodging tax, it wouldn't be a tax for them. It would be an additional fee charged to people staying overnight in Hermann. So it wouldn't cost the lodging people, it wouldn't cost the city. It would generate about $125,000 a year, which would be enough to fix the shortfall, at least pay for the Welcome Center and fund the tourism director's salary, so that none of it has to come out of taxpayers' supported money. So that, in a nutshell, is what I wanted to talk about in those areas. I think it should be well understood by everyone that the tax increase is on lodging only and would be paid 100% by tourists and 0% by citizens and taxpayers of Hermann. The third item I wanted to talk about is a reevaluation of the electric reserves, and this is something that I'm going to ask the Utility Advisory Board to look at. In 2012, the city hired a company, Brubaker and Associates, to prepare a report setting forth the amounts of reserve that the city should maintain in our electric department. And in today's dollars, it's around $2 million. But I'm not sure if that's enough now. This was 8 years ago. So we need to look at it again. And my idea for Utility Advisory would be they ask Brubaker to look at it and give us a figure that we need to have, a minimum or a figure that we have to have. I have no idea what it is. But they would be able to calculate it. And then, assuming that if we don't have that amount of money, we're going to have to continue to put that money in, which we're doing. And we have a very substantial reserve now. And I think it's much better than it's been for years and years and years. But I don't know if it's enough. If it's too much, if what we have on hand is not too much, the Board of Aldermen could consider some kind of reduction of meter fees, for instance, or some other thing if we have more than we need. But we don't really have any way to discuss this until we get a number from a independent outside expert, and that's what I was talking about. Okay, so that's what I have, and I'm not sure that Mark has very much.
Still working on with FEMA on the recent flood, and with all the grant work that's going on with the airport and the water study. Take up most of my time.
I noticed that the grant, have we had any, what's happening on the old doctor's clinic? Where do we stand on that?
Waiting for the title company to give us a closing date. I called them again today. So hopefully they'll get with me tomorrow and see if we can get that finalized.
Okay, so what that means for everybody that's paying attention, that's interested in that, is it's just like a house. We have to close on it, then we take possession of it, and at closing they just, I guess, distribute the money so that somebody can come in and start to knock it down and haul it off, and then we'll end up with the property.
Correct.
With just a level piece of property. Okay, well, that's fine, and let's move quickly to the ordinances.
All right, the first, which is on for second reading, is Bill number 2019-49, an ordinance calling general election for the year of 2020, setting the date and time thereof, specifying polling places, appointing judges of election, specifying officers to be elected, providing filing date for candidates, providing for publication of notice of election, and general provision.
I move Bill 2019-49, second read.
We have a second.
I'll second.
We have a motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried.
Next, Bill number 2019-50 on for second reading, an ordinance prescribing the salary for the elected office of city collector and establishing the effective date thereof.
Any discussion? Any comments? Could I have a motion?
Make a motion, we approve bill number 2019-50, second reading.
Okay, yes, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion's carried.
Next is Bill number 2019-51 for second reading, an ordinance approving text amendments to the zoning code of the city of Hermann, Missouri pertaining to medical marijuana uses as required by Article 14 of the Missouri Constitution.
Any questions or further comments on that?
Did we make any changes on this before this one, or did we approve it as it is?
We approved it as is.
I thought so.
Do you have something?
No.
you want- I know we discussed the distance.
Yeah. Then I
That was
thought we
changed.
didn't, they seemed to be happy with it, so.
Yeah, that was changed at the P and Z level. I believe.
Okay.
Do you have a motion?
I move it second read.
I'll second.
Motion's made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion's carried.
Next is Bill number 2019-52 on for second reading, an ordinance to approve a state aviation trust fund project consultant agreement by and between the city of Hermann, Missouri and Burns and McDonnell Engineering Company, Inc.
Make a motion, we approve bill number 2019-52.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried.
On to resolutions. The resolution in your packet this evening is a resolution to ratify an application for recertification for the Tree City USA designation.
We do this every year, correct?
Yes.
I move to approve the resolution.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to approve the resolution. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That resolution is just passed. Okay, on old business, I think I discussed the Welcome Center. We had it down to old business. I did get a letter today from the chamber that did send forward the financial information. I thank you very much for that. Well, I'll look at it and we can maybe talk about it tomorrow. If there's a way of getting together a little before our tourism commission meeting, that would be good. If not, we'll do it as part or after that, however we see best to do that. That's a good starting point. So I appreciate getting that information. Thank you. Okay, now that brings us to the first draft review of the ordinance on guest houses, bed and breakfast inns, and so on. And I'm going to take a minute to go over the background of this for people that don't know. Well, it could have been a year ago now. We brought, the alderman discussed an idea of not having any more guest houses in R2 and R3 and our other two residential zones, just like we had in R1. And the reasons were that there were so many of them, and we have about 10 more now, maybe 12 more. And also that they were really unregulated. There was nobody there. No ownership was there. And so on. So that was put into the form of was sent to planning and zoning. And planning and zoning didn't feel that we should eliminate them entirely, but we should put checklist items on their conditional use permits so that they could not just simply open up and start in and without any inspections or anything like that. So that came back to this board, this body, and this was Susan's bill. She started it, she worked through it. So Susan started a focus group, and the focus group had people that came and went, as focus groups do, and she met many, many times. And I think Dave Faber was at some of them, and maybe other aldermen were at other ones. And they developed a list of items that they felt were important. And then Susan took that list, and I think on her group were insurance agents and real estate agents and a lot of different people besides owners of guest houses. But she took that and she went out in the community and talked to other people. And so she has a well-rounded group and a lot of input. That information was taken and kind of made into a workable group of data and sent to Dave, and Dave hammered it into an ordinance. So that was where the first pass came from. That's not, that first pass is what we started with basically a week or so ago, or 2 weeks ago. That's not, we don't expect that to ever be the final version, because this is just the beginning. Tonight is the beginning of a process. And the process has already had one iteration among the Board of Aldermen. So we have the original and we have a red line with changes that everybody up here has made, and other people have called to our attention things that they thought were important, and we looked at those too. So where we stand now is we're going to go over this item by item. Dave Polite is going to help us with anything legal that we have questions on. And we're going to go over, Susan and I will kind of be the moderators, and we'll go over this. This is a workshop. So we're going to go over each item and discuss it. And then at the end, when we're done, then anybody here that has a question that we haven't talked about, which probably won't be very many, I want to talk about every part of it, you can ask your questions. So I'm going to get started on that. And this is something for, pass those down, there's 3 of them. Dave, you got yours. And, okay. So, beginning with, I don't know, did I give it beginning? Okay, beginning with the ordinance, you should have on your desk an original and a red line. I've got the red line here. I'm going to work from the red line. And then Susan, you have to pick the red line, and you can work from that as well. And we'll go back and forth because Susan's handled a lot of this, and I've talked to Dave about a lot of it, so we're both involved in it. But I'm going to go over the questions we had, and Dave can answer them, and I have answers, but for everybody's information, does this ordinance cover C1 and C2? And the answer is yes.
Yes. Can I give a little more background?
Sure, give whatever you need.
I've always looked at this ordinance as having 2 main parts. The first, which is Section 1, Section 2, Section 3, Section 4, and Section 5, has to do with amending the permitted and conditional uses in our zoning code. And so Section 1 is the one which basically says that bed and breakfast inns and guest houses will not be permitted uses anymore in R2. Section 2 says that bed and breakfast inns, guest houses, etc. will be conditional uses in R2. Section 3 says that in R3, bed and breakfast inns and guest houses that were in effect as of whenever we passed this, December 2019, will be permitted uses. So if somebody has a guest house or B&B, when we pass this, we're not going to require them to go back and get conditional use permits. Section 4 says that if there are any new B&Bs or guest houses in R3, new guest houses or B&Bs in R3, that they will require a conditional use permit. And Section 5 says in the commercial districts, they will be permitted uses not requiring a conditional use permit. And so that's the first part, as Mayor started out, that was talked about at this board 6 months ago and went to planning and zoning and massaged and sent back here. What I consider to be the second part of this is the establishing of bed and breakfast inn and guest house regulations, which is basically requiring that anybody who operates a bed and breakfast inn or guest house would have to comply with these regulations and fees, etc. And so finally getting back to your question, does this cover C1? Well, yeah, the second part does. The second part requiring a license to operate a B&B or guest house, and which sets forth regulations for B&Bs and guest houses, would cover guest houses in C1.
Okay, I actually think that maybe all these questions are going to get answered anyway as we go through this, because the questions that I listed from the various people are kind of only partial questions. They don't answer the whole question. So I'm going to skip over that. We can always come back to the autumn and see. So I'm going to suggest, I would also say that what this is for is so that we have a codified set of safety standards that everybody will abide by, because protecting the tourism business and the resident or the lodging business is very important to them. And people have a kind of expectation that they're staying in a place that's safe. They may not actually know what that means. They may not count smoke detectors or anything like that, but they do expect things to be safe. So that's what we're doing. And this has not come from us. This came from the lodging people. Susan, you might want to tell them how many meetings you had and kind of if these ideas came from those meetings.
We had 5 meetings at least, and I met with owners over the weekend too. And I spoke with the alderman, the mayor, the lawyer, the city administrator, the city clerk, citizens, lodging establishments, and the police. Information was collected from other towns' ordinances that are nearby, such as New Haven. We looked at Galena, Illinois, St. Charles. So we did a lot of research. All this was put together, and it's what we have to work with. So it's what we're going to build off of. And this ordinance is for the betterment of our community. Is to protect all of our business owners also from business damage or harm or lawsuits, to protect them. So that's where this all came about. Several years ago, a committee got together to work on lodging recommendations, but it never got off the ground. And now, since we've had such an increase in success with guest houses and inns and bed and breakfasts, now's a good time to do this.
Thank you. I think the next place to move to is probably Section 1. Do you think, Dave, we go to Section 1? And we start there. And this here again, you might want to describe what that does. If we could, you don't need to read it in detail. Just do it however you think. But you explain what it was for, so that may be good enough. Section 1, tell them what it's for.
Well, the paragraph that has the line through there in the middle, where it says bed and breakfast homes, period, and then it starts lining through, that's the way it currently reads. So bed and breakfast homes, inns, guest houses, vacation rentals, etc., are all permitted uses in R2, meaning that if you want a guest house in R2, you don't need a conditional use permit, you just do it. So that's been stricken to show that that's going to no longer be the case. And then right below that, with the understanding that with the many dozens, possibly, guest houses that we have existing as permitted uses in R2 and R3 right now, we can't pass a law where we go to all those existing people and say, now you have to come to City Hall and apply for a conditional use permit. Anybody who is operating a guest house as a permitted use now in R2 can continue to do so. So that's basically what section 1 says.
How about section 2?
That is the one that says if you are somebody wanting to establish a new guest house in R2, you need to apply for a conditional use permit.
Okay. And that was discussed at the P&Z level, so that's where that came from. What about section 3?
Section 3, again, to sort of mirror section 2, says that if you have an existing permitted guest house in R3 that is in effect when we pass this, if we pass this, then they're allowed to continue and they do not have to apply for a conditional use permit.
Okay. Okay, and then 4?
And then section 4 says if you have somebody new who comes and wants to establish a guest house in R3, they have to apply for a conditional use permit.
Okay, 5.
5, you always want to list where a certain use is permitted the first time. And so 5 just says that guest houses and bed and breakfast inns will be permitted uses in the general commercial district.
And that's because...
And without requiring any conditional use permit or anything.
And you do that because that indicates legally that it's not approved in any zone that's more restrictive than any lower zone.
That's general zoning ordinance construction rules, yes.
And in 6, I think, and so on, we go down. The next section I think is important is 420.050, which talks about permitting. And it says that no person shall operate a bed and breakfast inn or a guest house within the city of Hermann without first having secured a permit. All permit applications shall be filed with the ordinance enforcement officer on forms and in the manner prescribed by that person. All initial and annual renewal permit applications shall contain the following. And you'll notice that initially we said $300. That's been crossed out. And the new fee would be $67.50 plus a $32.50 business license. The reason for that change is because we do charge $300 for a conditional use permit. So it does seem pretty expensive that we would have been charging $632.50, I believe. And so this way we get it down basically to $100 plus their $300 they paid for the conditional use permit. Is there any discussion of that?
This fee is in addition to, if somebody is already established and they have paid that $300 conditional use permit, now they're going to get socked with another $100, is that what I am understanding?
Right, that's right, because we have an inspection and they would be paying $32.50 anyway for their
Why is there
annual
a charge
business
for the
license.
inspection?
What?
Why would there be a charge for the inspection?
Why wouldn't it?
Well, it should be a city service.
Well, that, we can do that. If that's what the aldermen want to do,
I'm just asking.
well, I'm just saying.
We have an enforcement officer, code enforcement, that will be doing these inspections, and then for all the paperwork that all of this requires also, and the safety things, is why that fee is there. And it's an annual permit, so we need to decide if we want that to be 1 year, every year they do this, or should it be every 2 years?
Well, I think there, well, it seems to me like we have an annual permit, you have an annual permit. The reason we do this is the way it is now, once the building code inspector gives them a permit that says you can inhabit this place, this dwelling, we never go back in there. We don't know what the situation is from year to year. The first year may be hard to go through and look at. The second year should be very simple. you have a checklist of items you go through. You check the smoke detectors, you check the so on and so forth, and then if they work, you check the flashlights, and it shouldn't be that hard. But we do pay somebody to do it, and it seems to me that it's kind of ineffective to do it every 2 years. I mean, I think that a lot can change in the first 6 months, and it probably needs to be done every year, but that's up to the alderman. There's plenty of time to change things, but if you see something now you want to talk about, or you want to change, then now's the time to bring it up. But that's my thoughts on the annual. We kind of talked about it. Most people do it annually, most other cities. So I think New Haven does it annually, and then they also inspect rental housing, and they actually inspect rental housing every time somebody moves out. Oh, we don't do rental housing, and we're not doing bed and breakfast either. So this is just guest houses where nobody is there for the most part to supervise. It's not like the owner is there in a bed and breakfast where they know if the battery goes out on a smoke detector. In this case, nobody knows. So anyway, that's the thought. If you want to make it 2 years, fine. I would say 1 year is probably better. We can always change it. Okay, and we can come back to it. The fee, on number 2, fee for bed and breakfast inn or guest house unit for renewal is $100 for the same reason. $67.50 plus $32.50. That's $100. You're paying $32.50 now, so it's an additional $67.50. Okay. Item 3, written confirmation by the ordinance enforcement officer that the premises comply. That could be a little tag. You see them all the time that say these premises pass inspection of the city of Hermann on this date, ordinance enforcement officer with a name and so forth. Number 4, and I'm going to turn this over to Susan in a minute. She can start reading through them. But proof of commercial business liability insurance in the amount of $300,000 maximum for any one liability claim and $600,000 maximum for a group claim with the city listed as co-insured.
Why? Is
Several
the city
reasons.
listed as co-insured?
Well, this came from an insurance agent.
I know that, but
And
I'm asking why.
suggested that it be this way because anytime they would cancel in policy, let's say they get it, they pass an inspection, they cancel the policy, we would get a notice of that. Also,
That's the reason behind it. We would be
That's one of
notified
them.
if the,
we'd be notified if they didn't make their payments, they didn't pay their premiums, at any time that the insurance would be canceled. So we would know that. The other thing would be if there is a claim, the city is covered too. Now, I think the city is covered anyway, I think, in MIRMA, but I'm not sure if MIRMA would cover liability on a commercial property that we don't have, that we don't own.
It wouldn't be a city responsibility.
I wouldn't think
It's like
so.
any other business in town. You have liability insurance, that's why you have it.
yeah,
Right.
do we require this of any other business in town?
I don't know.
Tricia, did you have
Oh,
something?
I was just going to say that back in April when we first addressed this, I had checked with MIRMA, and they said whether or not we had those kind of safety codes, that the city wouldn't be held responsible.
So it is,
I see no reason
It
for
is
that to be
covered?
in there.
He said that the city would not be held liable, and Mark and Dave is shaking an agreement.
David, so that means the city is covered under the MIRMA policy and the co-insured wouldn't really do anything.
No, that means that the city doesn't have any liability to cover.
What does it refer to, sovereign immunity? Oh,
Well, it's just, somebody has an accident at somebody's guest house, they can't sue the city for it, just like if they slip in your antique store or if they injure themselves.
So we don't need to be
at Stone
covered.
Hill.
I don't have a problem with requiring them to have liability insurance. It's that line of the city that just seems unnecessary.
Okay, well, that was suggested by the insurance company, if we can take that out. Is that what everybody would like to do for now, is take that out? Okay. There we go. Okay. 6, the City of Herman business license with the prerequisite Missouri State tax ID number, a certificate of no tax due issued by the state, and a proof that Gasconade County and City of Herman sales and lodging taxes have been paid.
So that's redundant in the fact that the certificate of no tax due is what is proof that the state, county, and city sales tax is paid.
Okay, so we don't need to say, then,
You can keep a lodging tax, but the other is just redundant.
so starting with,
Well, people don't get a business license if they owe lodging tax, do they?
no.
So why don't we just say a City of Herman business license, period?
I like that
Because,
idea.
well, we can do that, but the reason, I'm just telling you, it doesn't matter to me at all. But the reason it's in here is so that people know when they apply, or before they apply, that they're gonna have to do these things.
Well, I'm pretty sure they're gonna find out when they go to the counter.
Well, they're gonna find out. Okay, so you're saying after the City of Herman business license and strike all the rest of it?
Because those are all prerequisites to get
Yeah.
a business license.
Yeah, okay. 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 The next one says if a bed and breakfast inn or guest house has 5 or more sleeping rooms and is not a whole house rental, then a state inspection must be conducted annually, and a copy of the Missouri State Inspection Report for the premises or proof that a state inspection has been requested and scheduled shall be provided. So basically, they fall under state law too. If they're 5 or more sleeping rooms and they're not a whole house. In other words, if they rent the rooms out separately, then they come under the state. If they're a whole house rental, they don't. And that's the way their law is set up. So, Susan, do you want to explain why this particular one was put in there? Must be from your meeting.
Okay.
Well, it used to say that we had to pass the state inspection, period. And then we thought, well, part of them are not even covered by state law, so that you can't ask them to comply. And
And I think for state, it has to be 5 or more.
right.
So I think that came into it too, that if they had 5 or more sleeping rooms, and it wasn't a whole house, that then they would be state inspected.
And I did go to the health department and talk to their expert person, and that's where I have that information. We can quote the statute, Dave has them and I have them. If we need to, we can put that. Dave, is it a good idea to put those in there?
To put what in?
Statute, state statute that covers that.
Refer to the number.
I wouldn't on this one.
Okay.
Well, that was put in there when we discussed in the meeting, because there are people in town working under a city business license that are not complying with the state regulations. And I'm not sure how that was allowed to happen, but it definitely needs to stop.
Well, we had a couple of questions too, Dave, that said, can a business owner request an inspection from the state? And the answer is, if they have 5 or more rooms and they rent them out separately, yes. And the state will schedule it and come out and make the inspection. If they are a whole house rental, then they don't fall under their requirements of the state, so they wouldn't come out and inspect it.
Is that what the person at the health department told you?
Yep.
Okay.
You want to research that further? Okay.
So if the state doesn't initiate the inspection, it doesn't happen unless
That's right.
the homeowner does or the
Yes, that's
business
right. We've gone for over and over again, sent them lists of bed and breakfasts and guest houses that we show that have 5 or more rooms. And they said, well, we will do our best, but we're understaffed, and we just can't make any promises. We can look at these. However, if the people want one and they request it, we will come out and do it. I don't know. Yeah, I'm just reporting.
So if we would request it, or you said if the
No, the
people
owner.
request it? the
Well,
owner
if we
has to
require
request
it, they'll have to request it.
Yes.
But then what if the state doesn't have time to come out and do it?
Well, they'll schedule it. I asked that too. They'll schedule it, and we can accept it,
The fact that it's
that it's
scheduled?
scheduled. And they said that once it's requested, they're fairly quick. Now, what's fairly quick, I'm not sure. Is that 2 months or 2 weeks? I don't know. But at least if they have a copy of the schedule and we see that they've in good faith done that, then I think that should be good enough. Dave's gonna research that. I think we should come back when we have Dave's answer on that. Okay, and then there's a couple last ones. Anyone opening or attempting to open a bed and breakfast inn or guest house without the required business license, conditional use permit, or guest house permit will be in violation of this ordinance and subject to a $250 fine. That's just a number. This does happen, and right now, that means they don't have a business license oftentimes, well, they don't. And they're not collecting lodging taxes. Most, they wouldn't be. So this happens, we usually find them. It might take a matter of months. I've been told by somebody that knows where these are, that we have several that we don't know about, and they won't tell me who they are, because their business entails providing service to these people.
What are you referring to, like the Airbnb things? Is that what you're referring to with this?
Mainly VRBOs and Airbnbs, and there's a couple other ones.
Well, that shouldn't be hard to figure out who they are. All you gotta do is go on their website and type in Herman.
Well, we do that, but we don't find them right away. So, the fact is though, if somebody does that, that's why that's in here. We don't, I'm just reading them. I'm the reader.
So
So-
we can find somebody for attempting? How do you prove attempting?
Well, if they're operating without one and they haven't made any attempt to get one or find out anything, then I guess they would be attempting to operate a bed and breakfast inn without a license.
It seems like they're no longer attempting, they're actually doing it.
Okay.
Should attempting go out of their date?
Should anyone?
Well, it says
operate?
opening or attempting to open. So I guess if they advertise without a license, we would give them then too.
I think that we should just, well, let me say this. Keep in mind that this is a code section. 420.050 is a nothing right now. It's just a blank, unused code section. And it's in chapter 420, which is the zoning regulations. And at the end of chapter 420, regarding zoning regulations, it says that the owner or agent of a building or premises where a violation of any provisions of the regulations of this chapter has been committed, blah, 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 shall be guilty of a misdemeanor, et cetera, on conviction will pay a fine of not less than $100 or more than $250 and so on. And I guess what I'm getting at is I don't know that we need a separate paragraph in this section that says if we find somebody who's operating one without a permit, we're gonna fine them $250.
Okay.
I think we can give them a citation to city court.
Should we refer to that section or to let it go completely?
I'd let it go completely. Now, when you get to city court, the municipal judge might just shake his finger at the building owner and say, now you go and apply for your guest house permit ASAP. How he handles it, we have to see.
Should there be some kind of penalty for actually operating? What if the person refuses to get this? Then we're gonna close them down, I guess, huh?
Yep,
So we don't really need this.
I think that's correct, yes.
What do y'all think?
It's already there.
Yeah.
So we don't need this. Yeah. So that takes care of item H. Okay. Number 9, any bed and breakfast inn or guest house that is in arrears or late in paying their lodging tax when it is due shall have their business license suspended for 30 days for the first offense and revoked for any subsequent tardiness. That's actually our law now, except we don't give them 30 days.
Do we put 30 days in there, in arrears or 30 days late?
Yeah, I think that what the reason is because, if they just setting them up for a hearing to suspend their license seems kind of harsh. And, you know, you should at least, the first time, if we set them for a hearing and they end up having a good reason or even not having a good reason, once they have a little suspension, they might decide they're gonna do it, so.
Whatever
Hey,
we do it needs to stop. This was what funds our tourism here in town, and this has been let get out of hand. This isn't their money. They collect it, it's a pass-through tax.
Right.
I mean, it goes through them and to us. I
Right.
mean, they have the money. If they're not paying it, it's willful intention.
Okay, well, we give them a 30-day suspension if we have a hearing and we find that they did it willfully and we say that they're wrong, we can suspend their license for 30 days, which I think it should be it's not just a slap on the hand. If you want to go back to the strict interpretation of the law the way it is now, I think it says shall be revoked. So that shall means must.
So I'm sorry, in that one, you're leaving in language that says when it is due?
Yeah, that wording, I think, is,
Because
should be looked at by Dave to make sure that, what it means is, when it's due, and I don't think it's due on the end of the month, but we always give them a 30-day grace period. Is that correct?
Carol, you want to
Carol?
speak to that?
Is due, like, January, February, and March is due the end of April. That'd be first quarter.
Right.
So
Okay,
they have
so-
30 days after the end of it, the end of the month, the last month of the quarter, they have 30 days to get it in here.
And that would be the end of April.
Correct.
Okay. So then it's whenever it's due, and we probably should put that in here. Explain how we calculate that. Don't you think? It's 30 days from the end of the quarter plus 30 days. The 30 days from the end of the quarter.
And for everybody out there, the copy that you have, if you notice, the numbers are off now from what the mayor's reading. So number 11 is his number 9.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. I'm using the red line version, so maybe you can kind of keep us updated so everybody can follow. You what?
He doesn't have a red line.
I don't have one,
You don't even know.
but that's all right.
I sent one to everybody.
Go ahead.
We can share. I'll
Okay.
share.
Can somebody share with Bruce?
I'm fine.
You can look at mine.
Well, you'll want to read it, don't you? I'm reading it, so you can. Okay, now, item B, while Dave's looking that up, should we go through?
No, go ahead.
420-050B. It says bed and breakfast inn and guest house regulations. All bed and breakfast inns and guest houses shall comply with the following. And item 1 is each bed and breakfast inn and guest house shall have at least one off-street parking space for each sleeping room or suite, provided, however, that there shall be no off-street parking requirements for bed and breakfast inns or guest houses located in any portion of the C1 General Commercial District located within the boundaries of an HO Historic Overlay District. And then added to that in red, says if this provision is impossible to achieve, the ordinance enforcement officer will develop an alternative plan based on options available. So in other words, the ordinance enforcement officer will look at the unique situation and try to figure out a way that doesn't penalize them for having a lock, for instance, in a building where there's no possible way to have a off-street parking for every room, so that they're not penalized.
And we're going to grandfather in those that don't. Is there some that have no off-street parking?
Well, we don't need a grandfather in. The ordinance enforcement officer can just say, you don't have to have one, because there's no way unless you put a ramp on your roof that you could possibly have any off-street parking. So she can handle that. Okay, did you find it, Dave? Or did you-
Well, let's go back to what we were just talking about, and let me catch up a second.
Do you have one?
So,
Mayor, while you're looking for that, was what you just read, is that in anyone other than your paper?
Yeah, I sent it out to everybody. And it came from...
I mean, it's not in the draft and it's not in the last one that
Yeah,
I
it is.
received.
Yeah, it is. It's in the red line version that everybody up here got.
They don't have it.
They don't have it.
No, you don't have it.
Okay,
You don't have it. You have the original version before these changes, but they all have these changes.
okay.
I'm sorry.
Hey, you could have had it, but you quit.
Yeah.
I asked for it right.
Oh, okay.
Now let me think out loud for a second. Pardon me. Each bed and breakfast inn or guest house shall have at least one off-street parking space for each sleeping room or suite. But there shall be no off-street parking requirements for B&Bs or guest houses located in any C1 general commercial district located within the boundaries of an HO, historic overlay district.
That's our ordinance the way it is now.
Yeah, it's in the ordinance.
There should be no off-street parking for B&Bs or guest houses located in any portion. How about B&Bs or guest houses located in R2 or R3 that are also in the historic district?
That's why we're here.
Do they have to have off-street parking spaces?
Well, we can change. The only
It's
reason...
just not doable in some of these places.
Yeah.
These old houses were built on top of each other. You're built into a hillside. There's no place in back to park. I mean, you can't require something that's impossible.
Yeah, and that's what we don't want to do.
Well, then maybe we should just delete number 1 entirely.
Well, you're deleting an existing ordinance which requires people that have space to actually have off-street parking. And most of the people do have, they do have some space that they can, they might not want to use it for that, but we have, parking is at a real premium. So I think that we ought to look at this before we just delete it. I think it provides a good purpose. And it says if you've got the space, then don't have your people park in front of somebody's house. Give them
Well, you know,
space.
nobody's going to have the space. I don't have the space. You know, she didn't have to get one, and she's got more space than I did.
Well, I understand that, but we do have people that'll say that, and you'll say, well, what about this parking, this driveway? You've got a fire pit in it, but 2 cars could park in it. Maybe you should, that's 2 spaces that aren't in front of somebody's business and keeping people from parking there. So, it doesn't, whatever we decide we want to do, but it is the law now, and I think it's been in effect long enough that people are familiar with it, and it does have a positive effect. So, if we decide tonight we don't want that, then we can take it out. If we want to wait till next time and then take it out, we can do that. If the aldermen want to go and make a survey and make some notes and come back, we can take it out then, or we can leave it in.
Only thing I'm looking at there is to consider a different business, do we require them to have off-the-street parking?
No,
We don't.
we don't, but these people, a lot of people that come in, they come in, they park their car in front of a business, let's say, and, or in front of a house that's a residential house, and their cars are there all weekend, because they ride the trolley, and they just park, and they're not there for an hour or 2 like they would be, and if they were somewhere else. And what we're talking about here is not the downtown area, we're talking about out in the suburbs, out in the burbs, where they're mainly residential, and then there's a place where there might be 6 or 8 cars parked on weekends in front of it, so,
Do we have any complaints for that
all the
from
time,
citizens?
all the time.
Do we have complaints from that, Chief?
None that I've received.
Thank
Well,
you.
I get them all the time. And what he calls a complaint is an actionable complaint. Do you ever have anybody call and say, there's a bunch of people parked in front of my house, why is that?
I've not received any calls like that.
Well, I have. Dave, have you had any?
Not from residential districts, more than
If
business.
we've never had any calls, then I think we should take it out.
It's public parking, which is the problem. You
Yes.
can't reserve
So, yeah,
We
that's a
have-
big problem.
we have resident
My shop, People ride the
businesses.
trolley all day, they park
You
there.
know, live here all year long, and they don't rely, some of them, on tourism. And some of them, the difference between breaking even that day, not making a profit, but just breaking even is 1 or 2 customers, and those are the businesses that complain to me that, if they can't stop They drive on and go somewhere else. But that's not residential neighborhoods, those are businesses, that's where my complaints are coming from.
And I think what this is for is a residential house that's turned into a guest house and has space in the back that you could park in an alley or park and have an entrance to the backyard in an alley. But if it's not a problem, then I don't think we ought to do anything. We should take it out. If that's, what do you say?
I think we should take it out, but that's just me.
What
It
about
gets
you?
back-
The ordinance says if it's a dwelling, they have to have one space for each dwelling unit. And if you look at the off-street parking requirements ordinance section, it says hotel, motel, bed and breakfast, home, bed and breakfast, and one space for each sleeping room or suite. Churches, one space for each 5 permanent seats, and on down the line.
Churches?
If we take this out,
When
Dave,
we
will
redid
it
our
still
church
remain
thing, we had
as an
estimated parking
ordinance?
spaces.
Right, right.
in our ordinances?
Sure.
I think that's important. If we take this out of this bill, it still remains an ordinance it's still an ordinance for parking. It's just not part of this particular,
How about we just say each bed and breakfast inn and guest house shall comply with the off-street parking requirements provided in section 42670.
sounds good to me.
And what does that,
Basically what this says.
That's just
the
what
same
it
thing?
It's all this if you want this.
It is off-street parking requirements for all these different types of things, including
Motel, yeah.
bed and breakfast inns.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, you know where I live across the street from a church, and the people around me are all families. I mean, there's no single people living around me, and especially, you're gonna see it here in the next few weeks of Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, their families come over. And I lose my parking, so I park on the other side of the street, it's not a big deal. Like I said, I just don't really, and, you know, I'll tell you a couple of those days, my family's gonna be there, and they're gonna park in front of other people's houses. We get along. You know, I just haven't seen it as a big problem in residential. I mean, I'm sure I may get some phone calls about this, yes, Dave, it's a problem, but I haven't gotten any complaints about from residential neighborhoods.
Well,
I think if there is a situation like that, if we're humans, we should go and say, Dave, your residents are taking up some parking.
And I'd be more happy to have them go out and tell them to move.
That's how it should be handled,
let's,
not by law.
let's take it out if that's the way. We don't need to have something in here. That, it's still a law
Let's
in
just leave
Herman.
it like Dave said.
Well, we can do that. I'm just the record keeper here, the reader.
So, letter B, section 1, let's just do away with it.
You wanna do away with it?
I think we should.
What about over here? Okay? Susan, I think
So
we
take
got,
it all, take the whole thing out.
take number 1
And we
out.
just have the ordinance.
So
The ordinance is still out there.
Right.
I'm getting confused. Can we clarify again then how this is going to affect existing guest houses in R2 and R3 that don't have the parking and any new ones that would want to come in?
It doesn't sound like it'll affect them at all because we're taking it
They'll have
out.
no parking requirements.
They'll have just
It is,
what
'cause
the
we're taking
ordinance
it out.
says.
But does that address, that just addresses the commercial district, it doesn't address the C2
No,
and
it's
C3
already out
that
of
are
the
in
commercial
store?
district. It doesn't even apply to commercial district.
Well, I think what Tricia and I are both realizing is that you guys might, and gal, might want to look at 42670 because, and see if we need to tweak that one. Because, yeah, exception, there shall be no off-street parking requirements in the C1 commercial district within the boundaries of an HO historic district. But it doesn't say, you know, you would think it would be even more important to say that there's no off-street parking requirements in the R2 and R3 districts located within HO, but it doesn't say that.
That's, you're right.
So you think we should amend it then, possibly
And then
to
42670.
I think you
if
did
that's,
it. R2 and R3.
I don't know why we would accept C1 properties in the historic district from off-street parking requirements, but not R2 and R3 properties.
Wouldn't make much sense, would it?
So
So it
how
doesn't
can
say
we-
anywhere
how
that
can we
this
amend
whole section is for R1, R2, and R3. It just talks about only commercial. I'm looking at what you're looking at.
Yeah, look at,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's the
there's
only
no
one.
off-street parking requirements in C1.
Okay, but in R2 and R3? It's left out.
Well, then what's all the rest of this for? Dwelling, is this all the uses? Those uses are for, in what section?
In any,
Across from it, it's telling you, a dwelling should have one.
like under hotels, motels, dormitories, bed and breakfast inns, it says all of them shall have one space for each sleeping room or suite. That's everywhere in the city.
So that covers R1, R2, and R3.
And then down below, it says, except
Right,
you don't have to have one space for each sleeping room in C1.
right, so
And
it's
that-
all covered there.
Well, kind of, except my question is, why are we exempting C1 from the one space for each sleeping room requirement, but not R2 and R3? If you got a B and B in R2 and R3, then you have to have one's off-street parking for each sleeping room or suite. Maybe that's what they meant, because in R2 or R3, you don't want guests taking up the street. I don't know, I'm not sitting here tonight saying change it, that's just something
We need to look at it.
Well, this
Dave,
was
can
written
you
in what,
research that for us?
1995, so.
Can you look at that one
Well,
and see if we have an alternative to just eliminating it?
it's more a legislative question than it is
Yeah.
a legal question, and whether the aldermen think that we need to require B&Bs and guest houses in R2 and R3 to have an off-street parking space for each guest room.
Well, they can.
I'm gonna say, I don't see how that's possible for someone.
It's not, so we do need to have some provision. I mean, we don't have to say, well, just because if you can't do it, nobody has to do it. We should make a provision for the people that can't do it, like we did, and make a way that they can do it, or give them an exemption. But it does seem to me that we ought to at least look at the fact that maybe R2 and R3 should try to carve out some of their lot, as opposed to having people park in front of other people. But that's your call. Right now, we've kind of decided to take it out, but we can readdress this if you want to. And I think Dave's saying there's no research required. You know, we just add,
Well, I think for purposes of this ordinance, I think the consensus is take it out.
yep,
And then we're gonna think more about 42670.
okay, so that's the ordinance in general, the general ordinance. We need to maybe look at adding R2 and R3 or some such thing because right now it's kind of vague. Okay.
We'll have to
Okay,
go to
so it's out.
P&Z. We'll have to go to P&Z for their consideration.
I don't know,
Okay.
but we'll check into that.
I don't think so, yeah.
I don't know, maybe not, maybe. Item 2, maximum occupancy shall be 4 people per sleeping room. You say 3, I've had people say it should be 4. 3, 4, 2, whatever the number is,
Why are we telling them how many people they can have in a sleeping room?
because that was one of the complaints. Dave, if you remember, I think you and Bruce said, well, it's overcrowding, there's overcrowding. There's 25 people in some of these places, so that's why this is in there.
But there's a change that we could do, is we could put maximum occupancy is limited to the number of occupants by the following conditions, and go with what St. Charles and New Haven has, and they go by square footage.
That is a good alternative.
Well, I've talked to some of the guest house owners, and said, they said, Dave, if we've got a room set up for a maximum of 4 to 6 people, we're not gonna jam 10 people in there and destroy the room. And if we do that, we basically keep ourselves from renting a completely another room. If I let them put a few more in that room, when I could have rented the other room, we're losing money that way.
Well, Dave,
I got a problem with the way this is written.
And when you look at this, if we would change it the way that I was saying and do square footage, it would say less than 70 square feet or in any kitchen, hall, or public space. So no sleeping in the hall, no sleeping in the dining room with an air
I'm good with
mattress.
that.
It can't be used as a sleeping room.
Right.
And then,
And
in
it's
talking with the bed and breakfast and guest house owners that I've talked with, they said regardless of square footage, there should be a maximum of 6 people in a room. And if you go to this chart that's from the other towns, 200 and above is 4 occupants plus 1 for each additional 50 square feet.
So if you had, for
But
instance,
then have a max
300,
of 6.
you'd have 6 people, 300 square feet. And what is 300 square feet? That's 15 by 20. Room, that's a pretty good sized bedroom, 15 by 20.
But then the other thing is we have a place there or two in town that has dorm style sleeping.
And as you
we
said, I mean,
can't-
there are
we
bunk
would
beds
have
in some of
to-
these.
We would have to probably grandfather those until they are sold, leave them as they are, but when they're sold, then they have to go with these things.
Yeah, because that's not something that's commonplace. There's only one of those I know of.
Some of these, I mean, they are beds for people to crash in. That's basically all they are. They're not there to eat, they're not there to spend any time in the room. You know, they go out, they come in, they crash, they get up, they take a shower and go back out again. Which is actually what we want them to do when they're a guest.
I think originally, the idea was that there are becoming so many of these that they're actually putting bed and breakfast out of business. Now, I don't think the city should be in the business of trying to make laws to keep people in business. But you should everybody should understand that if you let 30 people stay in a house that's, whole house rental, that you're really taking rooms from bed and breakfast that would probably put 3 people in a room or 4 people in a room. So it's,
I'd have to disagree with you on that because the bed and breakfast customers and then your guest house customers are a different type of people.
well, I think that's right, Bruce. I think you're right.
I mean, I don't think one hurts the other one.
Well,
I think they feed off each other to a certain degree. If somebody comes and stays at a guest house and they're not happy with it, well, maybe they'll try a full-fledged bed and breakfast
Well,
because they get catered to a little bit more. So I think
I
that-
understand what you're saying. I think that's not exactly what the people told Susan. They seem to be in favor of a maximum occupancy. And maybe when we have the open hearing or open session on the 9th of December, if those people feel that way, they should come and tell us about that.
And these things came from, these sources got their stuff from the International Building Code and the International Residential Code, the square footages.
Well, in my mind is, if you jam 10 people in a closet, charge them $100 a night to stay there, they're not gonna be happy with that. They're not gonna keep doing it, they're not gonna come back, they're gonna give bad reviews on it or something, if that's not what they're looking for.
But if they got 5 rooms in there, Dave, you think they're gonna stay in the closet?
Well, no, what I'm talking about is a small room. I mean, if you pack people into a small area, and that's not what they're looking for. I mean, something's worth whatever someone's willing to pay for it, but I would not stay in a place like that. So it's just,
And Susan mentioned your dining room is not considered a sleeping room, a hallway. But then again, if you read what's in here, it's wherever they decide to put an air mattress and arm cot up.
That's a
That
state
now
law.
becomes a sleeping room.
That's a state law. So,
So if they do that, have a 4-bedroom house, and they put a cot up in the hallway and a cot up in the dining room, now they're over to 5 rooms,
Now
and they
they're
have
5 or
6,
6
they have to
rooms.
have a state,
unless it's a whole house rental.
how
then
can
anything
we
goes.
regulate that, because we won't know that.
We won't. We're not gonna know if anybody follows any of this unless something happens or somebody complains.
Well, a lot of it has more to do with smoke detectors and stuff like that. We're gonna get into that in a minute. But it's, like I said, I'm the record keeper, so if you guys feel that we should think this through, this part of it through, this is a problem. This is probably the most difficult one when I looked at it that we could possibly address.
Well, the sleeping rooms, to me, is just a floating number. There's no set. I bring a cot along, now it becomes a sleeping room. Bring 2 cots, that could be 2 more sleeping rooms.
but there's no way for us to regulate it.
No,
Well, the problem is we don't really know.
that's the only thing I'm saying, if you regulate.
Unless we go
4.
in to inspect and there's bunk beds set up in the living room, and that would then become a sleeping room. And maybe would make an extra room, and eventually there'll be 5 or more.
How big couch makes us a sleeping room.
Same thing, yep.
You got a family of 5, and they're all over the age of 5, they're not gonna be able to stay in one of these rooms. I mean,
No,
if you're limited to 4.
Well, that's why there's guest houses that have all different numbers of rooms too.
they have all what, Susan?
Different
That's
numbers
4
of
per
rooms.
sleeping room.
Right. Well,
They got 2 sleeping
what do we
rooms.
want to do with this?
Well, I think we need to look that one over a lot more.
It's very difficult. Okay. All right, moving on. Number 4. Number 3. Well, I don't, Trish, what number do you have on this?
It's B3.
Number 3, signs for emergency phone numbers and the locations of flashlights and fire extinguishers shall be placed inside the front door of the building. Now, this is usually done with a little floor plan map, and it shows the exits on the floor plan, and it shows fire extinguishers, flashlights, whatever else.
A lot of places already do this. So
Yeah,
for some of
that's-
them, like, I already do this.
That's common sense.
A lot of places do a lot of this.
Why don't
And
we
there-
require flashlights? I mean, everybody has a cell phone now with a flashlight.
But what if they don't?
When you go
What
to
if
a
you don't-
motel or
what if
anything
you-
else, do you get a flashlight? I
If
mean,
you
I've
have a
never heard of that.
cell
We're
phone's
not gonna
got a
hand out-
flashlight on it, it's
Bruce, we're
covered.
not gonna hand out flashlights.
Well,
We're just
my-
gonna provide those and tell them.
I smoke a long
There's
time.
one on the bed, something outside the bed.
I'm better than that.
I don't-
All right. Signs and locations, you might as well put the flashlights and fire extinguishers on there, but if you want to strike, do you want to strike flashlights? I mean,
Well, the problem with the flashlight is if the power goes off and it's smoke, you're not gonna be able to see to find the flashlight anyway.
all right,
The other thing is one of the people I talked to said or you could have a battery backup light source, like they have night lights that plug in, and if the power goes out, they have a
Take them
battery in
all.
them and it still
I know.
comes in, so it could say a flashlight or battery backup light source. Now, what if your phone's dead? I don't know.
I mean, there's a lot of what ifs. This would go along, I think Susan and I talked about evacuation route. It shall be posted. And this could go right on that map.
Well, that's what those maps show.
That's what they're
Where the
showing.
Where
exits
the
are.
fire extinguishers are and the closest way out.
Now, if you're in a room that's got one window and one bed, you're gonna find your way out. You've got 2 ways of egress.
But in reality, how many people actually go into a place like that and actually look at that map? I mean, it's not wrong with requiring it, but
but
I'm
that's
just
like saying
saying.
how many people buy a car and drive the speed limit. I don't know, but they're supposed to. So we're gonna think about that one. I think that the question is flashlights, should we have that in there? Should we put backup lights? So I think that everybody think on that and get back with Susan on that. Number 4 is an operational light-producing flashlight, and I think that's important. Jim mentioned this. He said, well, an operational flashlight could be considered operational. If you put batteries in it, it'll operate. What we're talking about is, it has to produce light.
Oh, is that why it says light producing?
Yes.
I was wondering about.
You didn't think you paid it there for that one. So that's kept in a prominent place. So, you know, I don't know, maybe people steal one. You know.
That's the first thing that occurred to me.
But anyway, somebody should come in to clean it and could check for the flashlights. But that's what that's for, so if you don't want that, it might be, battery backup lights might be able to substitute for that. But once you get outside, it's dark too, so if the electricity is out, it's gonna be dark. So having a couple flashlights is not a bad idea, my opinion.
I don't know the answer to this, I'm just thinking, when does the building code require the lighted exit light with the 2 white lights on top that are usually on little swivels or whatever that you can direct, so that when your power goes out, the exit light stays on and those white lights come on and light up the whole area? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I
know
believe
exactly
the
what you're
state
talking
does.
about. I installed a lot of them.
We've got them in this building.
All emergency lighting shall be maintained in good working order. Emergency lighting shall be provided when guest room doors open to the interior corridor and where guest room doors are open to the outside but not directly at grade level. And it goes on in here somewhere to say they must have, they must be illuminated. But we didn't put that in ours. So,
Our law office used to be bed and breakfast building, has one of what I just said on each floor. Not on every room, but in each hallway, you know, to light up the hallway. But I'm not sure where that rule comes from.
I think that what Susan said about having a battery backup light that might go on might provide an alternative to having a flashlight in every sleeping room. Especially if we're not going to define sleeping rooms. So, you know, that would provide some low light that would be probably the proper place to have it, as opposed to up in the air with smoke getting into it. I think
With
we
the
ought to-
configuration of all, excuse me, with the configuration of the buildings in our town, those lights are great if you have a long hallway, but some places it would help, but many places it would light up a little area and that's it, because of the hallways and the stairways and so
Right.
forth.
We've also, Bruce, looked at trying to keep the cost of this down.
Well, I'm just
So as we
saying,
get
those aren't
into-
exactly cheap to install.
So as we get into these other things, you'll see that there's other, I would say, people, if they look at the map, it shouldn't be that hard to figure out how to get out of some of these houses, because there's only 3 or 4 rooms on the first floor. So, but they ought to, that's the first thing I do, especially if I'm on the 10th floor or something. How do I get out of here? But anyway, that's 4, an operational light producing flashlight. But I like the idea of battery backup lights. So that might be something we could make some alternatives to. Number 5, the street address of each building shall be posted visible at the building's front entrance with characters that are at least 4 inches tall in contrasting color. In the historic overlay district, street address characters must be of a size, font, and design as approved by Landmarks Commission. The Landmarks Commission may at their discretion pre-approve a design of numerals that may be used by owners to eliminate the need for a Landmark Commission review of numeral designs. So in other words, that keeps them from having to call a special meeting every time we have one of these. They just pre-approve these numbers and you can just use them. That's what that's about. I think the fact that we really, there are a lot of houses in Herman that don't have.
Well, it's already city code, isn't it? Yeah. You're supposed to have in front of your house marked.
Right, and they're
And it's
not.
supposed to be on the house, not on the mailbox or anything.
But this puts it in this, they have to agree to this to get their,
And maintain it.
right, so. Okay. Number 6, handrails must be located on stairs and around stairwells, both inside and outside of the building. If there are 4 or more steps, or if the steps are 4 feet wide or wider, then they must have a handrail on each side, both inside and outside of the building. And I had put some notes in here from comments and talks with other folks. This is a safety issue, but will add cost to the lodging room. An alternative is to require only 1 handrail on one side of the room, instead of 2.
What does our building code say about this? We just updated the building code last year. I mean, a certain number of steps has to have a handrail on certain things, so.
We can check.
And if it's already in our building code, I don't know why it would need to be in here.
Well, the reason it's in here and our building code is because people have to agree to this to get their permit. So they know about it and they have to do it. And I think that's the important part. Just like putting the numbers up. It's in our building code too, but people aren't doing it.
I think when Regal was at one of those meetings, we talked about this, didn't we, Dave?
Yeah, we did, but I don't
decided-
remember him saying if it was actually part of the code or not.
I don't either, but I know we talked about making sure we had one for sure.
There's OSHA regulations out there on that, so we could just put in, must qualify with the Missouri State statute and OSHA requirements for stairs.
But they don't know what that is. The people that are signing this, they don't know what that is. So if we're gonna require handrails, we ought to tell them that we're gonna require handrails. If that's what the OSHA stands for. So it seems to me we ought to
Steps are
have.
7.5 inches tall.
What's that?
The height of the step should not exceed 7.5 inches or
Well, they
less.
didn't tell people that built our house. Because ours are about 12 and a half. That's quite a drop. Susan, do you remember anything you said Lee did?
We talked about it. I don't remember.
Well, that's
saying
fine,
it.
we'll check with Lee. Can you check with Lee?
I just can't picture anybody having steps like that without a handrail on already. I mean, you're asking for a lawsuit. It's just,
There
Well, then we
steps around
shouldn't,
here.
shouldn't cause a problem. Okay. 7, all exit signs must be installed over all exit doors. And also required by State Code 315.055H, which requires a lighted sign. I don't think that, I mean, I'm almost against the lighted sign. I'm just a reader. But you're talking about expense of knocking out part of the wall and putting electric in there and so
some
forth.
of these old houses, it's hard to get electricity in a place
Houses,
like
yeah, You
that.
don't want to destroy the.
If you got a plaster
house,
wall.
something
Yeah,
like
you're-
that.
I mean, how are you gonna get it in there? So, yeah, I think that we're better just to put a sign.
Is that battery operated?
Yeah, you can battery on it. Well, you can put, any place you've got a ceiling light fixture, you can put a hardwired smoke alarm. It can be right next to it. That doesn't hurt anything. But you can use the battery operated ones work fine as long as you change the battery.
Right.
Supposed to change your smoke alarm and carbon monoxide
Twice a year.
every time the type changes. So if you put a battery operated exit light with a spotlight that comes down,
Yeah, but the battery operated lights have to have power to them, keeps the battery charged. And they are expensive, believe me.
And it's hard to hook them up in
Yeah.
an old house that has blasters, so
Just
we might have
exit
to
sign
compromise on that
is
one.
good
Or
with
just
me.
say exit signs.
Just have it, yeah. What it originally said was, exit signs must be installed over all exit doors. And that's, now, number 8 required a fire ladder. And in talking with Bruce, he said that's not required by the fire code.
I checked with High Ridge Fire Department, Fire Marshal, and he checked with Rock Community Fire Marshal, and that is not a requirement. He says you can go beyond the NFPA standards if you want, but the liability of doing that is not worth the effort, is what I was told.
And I also found out it's not, I don't see it in the lodging code itself in the state. So basically, that one's lined out. So, the fire department here will, will find a window, if you stand by the window, and they'll come up and get you. I think it's the way it works according to Bruce. So that, you're probably 15 feet up anyway, or 14 maybe, and less. And I'm not saying jump, but what they'll get you. So that one, unless we decide we want to put it back in, I think it's problematic, expensive, and probably worth taking out. Okay? Number 9, smoke alarms shall be installed in each sleeping room and in each floor's hallway. Carbon monoxide detectors shall be installed on each floor's hallway if the building has anything other than electric, heat, and appliances. Additionally, smoke alarms and carbon monoxide detectors shall also be placed in all cooking areas, kitchens, laundry rooms, mechanical rooms, and hazardous areas pursuant to Missouri Code 315.055 hold. So, we don't have to do their part of it, but I thought we'd put it in there so we know that they require more rooms than what we require. Smoke alarms are good. So are carbon monoxide detectors.
Well, I like that one where it's written, unless our fire expert down here has any changes in it, I'd leave that one alone.
The change that I would make would be that, you're gonna install a carbon monoxide detector in the hallway, that's fine. If it has anything other than electric heat and appliances, I wouldn't install one anyway.
Yeah,
I mean,
You
what
would?
what happens if somebody pulled up close to the door and their car's running outside and the exhaust is coming through the door?
So you're
I mean,
suggesting that we just take,
I'm suggesting that you leave that in there, but strike anything other than electric heat and appliances. In other words, it's beneficial to have one. You don't know what the circumstances are. They could have a wood stove in there. We just ran a call not too long ago and that there was a crack in the exchanger.
I've heard about that.
And it said their CO, good thing it did. And
So-
so that wasn't an electric heat source.
What you're saying is strike from the word if through all the way through that sentence. So it reads, smoke alarms
says
shall be
anything
installed in each
other
sleeping
than-
room and in each floor's hallway. Carbon monoxide detectors shall be installed on each floor's hallway. What about these other places?
Well,
Well, carbon, yeah.
I don't think a smoke alarm would be required in every
No,
room, but that's fine, you know, if you wanna go that far, that's fine,
Well,
but.
most of these
It's not
places, I
everywhere.
assume, are non-smoking, but you've always got that one person that thinks they can get away with it.
Or they'll light a candle, or,
But should we have carbon
Incense.
monoxide detectors? Smoke detectors, I think, are fairly standard and they're inexpensive. Carbon monoxide detectors may cost a little more.
They run about $34 for a new one they just bought.
So we should really let's think about which rooms we want these in.
Well, a carbon monoxide detector, you just need one on each floor. It's
And-
a smoke.
But you can
And in the
combine
hall.
that with a smoke
Yeah.
detector and eliminate buying both.
Yeah, you can
Yeah.
get combo units.
Or a canary.
Or buy a canary. Okay, this is smoke.
Two watches a canary.
Okay, but that's what the Missouri code calls for. So we will strike that about electric heat and appliances and just have one in the hallway anyway, in sleeping rooms for the smoke detectors and each floor's hallway. And in the hallway, like Bruce said, you can get a combo unit that does both. Okay, number 10. Charged fire extinguishers shall be kept on each floor and in the kitchen. The floor where the kitchen is located then will have 2 fire extinguishers. The locations of fire extinguishers shall be well marked. And then I found, and so I put it in for your FYI, fire extinguishers shall also be placed in all cooking areas, kitchens, laundry rooms, mechanical rooms, and hazardous areas pursuant to Missouri Code 315.055K. So you have the option there if you want to add anything to it.
Well, I agree they should have fire extinguishers, truly. But to be fair, if these buildings catch fire, the last thing you want is your people putting them out, you want them out of the building.
Right, but you might put somebody out.
Yeah.
So if somebody else is burning up, I'd want to hit them with a fire extinguisher rather than wait for the fire department. So I think there's a good reason to have them. But it just depends on how many rooms we want them in, so give that some thought. This should be fairly,
Again, that will come down to the size of the building. I mean, if you got a guest house that's got 1 or 2 bedrooms, and you don't need 6 fire extinguishers in a
No.
little residence like that. So, I mean,
charged fire extinguishers shall be kept on each floor and in the kitchen. And that's what we said. So that's really only 2 if they have, 1 in the kitchen and 1 in the...
but then you're adding laundry room, mechanical room.
Well, that's what the state does. We don't have to do that. We can pick some of those out. We can eliminate some, leave some in. I'm just telling you what the state requires. So if this comes out to be a 5 or more guest house where they rent it by the room, they're gonna have to have all this, or they won't get their requirement. So that's up to you aldermen, what you think. I would just think about what we should leave. Do we go with the basic that we had before, or do we add any of these other rooms? That's up to you. You can think about it and give Susan a call.
I would say that's a hard nut to crack because it depends on the type of residence or building that you have, what you're gonna require for fire extinguishers. I mean, that's a no-brainer,
Yeah.
So that one's hard to write down.
Yeah.
All I would
are there standards?
A lot of it is already right now.
I mean,
Okay, do you wanna, are you saying we shouldn't write it down? I don't.
no, I mean, having fire extinguishers is a wonderful idea. I'm not, don't misunderstand me. I'm just saying,
There's no
Maybe it
a
cooking.
little bit of overkill
Yeah.
isn't gonna help. And like
No.
Dave said, you don't want people to actually try and put out the fire, really.
Maybe we
Well-
should take out fire of all the other rooms, the Missouri code, take that out and just leave the 2 sentences.
One fire extinguisher prominently displayed on each floor, I would think would be adequate.
I would,
Like I said, what
Okay,
steps do you
then,
take in the event of a
let's
fire,
strike-
really big one?
Let's strike the red. Can we do that? The Missouri code? Because if they fall under their requirements and they're inspected, they're gonna have to get them anyway, but all the people that don't won't be required to get them, and they probably won't need them. So why don't we strike that? If that's okay.
So how's it gonna read?
It's
One
gonna
fire
read-
extinguisher should be kept on each floor?
yeah.
And in the kitchen, the floor where the kitchen is located then will have 2 fire extinguishers. Locations of the fire extinguishers shall be well marked, period.
I think 1 per floor is sufficient, even on the floor where the kitchen is. Just put it in the kitchen, you're covered.
Yeah, we've got 2, so 2 will, is, I don't know.
Charged fire
Yeah.
extinguisher.
And now we could do the same thing up on 9 and just strike out the state's code. It's gonna apply anyway if they have 5 rooms that they rent, and they rent by the room. And so they will have to have it, but the state will make them have it. And that way, all of our people won't have to have it, except those few that are required. We could take that out too. How do you feel about that? If we're gonna do it on 10, maybe we should take it out on 9.
Yeah, they're gonna come under the state deal
I
anyways.
agree.
Okay, let's try that. Okay, the next one. GCFI outlets shall be installed and maintained for current city building code requirements. Now, we have to see Lee on that. But if we say what it is, when we change the building code in several years, then this will change automatically. If we list the requirements of the code, and then we change it in several years when we adopt a newer one, then we'll have to change.
I'm not an electrician, what does it take to change it to a ground
It's
fault?
pretty easy.
Is it
I mean, you take
grounding
the old
wire.
one out,
just a grounding wire?
yeah.
Is that a reset type of,
You buy the GFC outlet, you can hook a grounding wire, there's a silver screw on there, and just run it to the box.
so you can easily convert a normal one to a GFI?
Yeah, you turn off the electric and you just substitute them.
Turn it off.
And then, turn off the electric,
Why?
and then,
Otherwise, shocking.
and then actually, what the instructions will tell you, if you have, let's say, a kitchen, if you do the first one, the other ones will use that first one, so.
If you
can-
have it wired into
If you
there.
have it,
series.
right.
Same
So,
circuit.
so somebody,
I
okay.
think the OSHA on that GFC is 10 foot within a water source. I think
so.
Susan said 5.
And I think Lee said 5, but I'd have to go through all those papers. But we can double check.
Well, we ought to check anyway, since we're gonna put it in.
You could just say, as one of your numbered items here, shall comply with all provisions of the city's building code.
I think that's probably a good way to phrase it.
Because we're picking and choosing a couple of things that we think are probably in the building code,
Shall comply
but why not just say,
with,
and you may say, well, because these people don't know what's in the building code. And then I would say, well, maybe they should pull it out and read it. Or our code enforcement officer
can give them a copy.
can, well, or can say, you know, you need GFIs in this bathroom, and here, I'm gonna be back in a week when I come back, have that done, and handle it that way.
Of course, that's gonna, then they're gonna pull the building code and say, there's 22 things on here that we need to get now. I don't know. We better look at that. You know, there could be 100, I don't know how many.
But that's why we're putting this together, make sure everything is safe enough.
Well, I agree with you.
You know, you mentioned New Haven and other cities earlier, and how they require this and that, and require building inspections before, even when there's a change in occupancy, like when a renter leaves and a new one comes in, what they're checking for is the whole building code. And I know in Washington, you get an occupancy permit, you got, you know, they check everything, and yeah, there might be a dozen items on there,
Right,
but
okay.
something to think about.
No, it's good. I've got a note here that we need to check that. And that's an option, just to say shall comply with all aspects of the current building code. Yeah, yeah. as per the current building code. Number 12, there should be 2 well-marked avenues of egress. We could just say exits.
Egress.
Not like egress, it sounds like a bird.
Egress would be better.
From any room where people are sleeping. For example, 1 window and 1 door. That's, I don't think we're gonna argue with that.
You're gonna mark this is the door and this is the window? What do you want them to mark?
What if
No, what that means is, it doesn't say that.
it says, well,
It should just say, there shall be 2
Let's just take that
avenues
out.
of egress, not well.
A sign that says avenue of egress on the door.
Yeah. Let's take that out because they know what a window is.
There again, too, you have to specify, we can dig deeper into it, is what size of window.
Right,
I mean,
well,
normal house with small windows in the
But that's-
basement,
that's something
that's
that-
not an egress.
that's something that the ordinance,
Yeah.
if it's a window this big, it probably doesn't qualify. But she can say, tell them you need some,
That falls back, like Dave suggested, based upon the requirements of the building code.
okay? I just wonder how many things are actually in the building code. So on this one, we removed and struck through well marked. So it reads, there shall be 2 avenues of egress from any room where people are sleeping.
Correct.
Okay. All right, thanks, Trish. Enough fun for tonight. Number 13.
You're not done with number 12?
We're not?
No.
Oh, okay. Your version shows the rest of it, but it's struck through. Each bed and breakfast inn and guest house shall maintain a register of all guests and persons in their party. Such register shall be provided to the city.
I think
Now,
that was struck through because it was duplicative of what
it's
was number 13.
redundant, right. Let's go to 13 and see what that says. A register shall be maintained of all overnight guests, and in red line, listing names and addresses. The rest of this, that line, and all other persons in their party is struck through. And that was 2 or 3 people came up with that change. Such register shall be provided to the zoning inspector upon request. And then in red, or in yellow, it says Airbnb and VRBO and possibly others do not furnish this information. So if we require it, the lodging owner may not be able to provide it. Right. And I don't think it's fair to look at. Do you?
You're right.
Okay. So I don't think that would be fair to ask them for something that they have to jump through hoops to do that.
What if it, in talking to some people, a register shall be maintained with the primary paid and number of guests for occupancy stated? So that if something happens, you've got the main person's name that rented it, and they would know all those people's names if something happened to one of them?
Well, that's fine too. I mean, like I said, I'm just,
Shouldn't the guy or person that owns the facility have that information?
That's what this is, that they have this information, so if something happens,
Well, I mean, these
It's like-
people already know who's staying at their places,
Yeah.
how many are there.
well, they might not.
May not know how many stay in there.
And they
Well,
might
they
not.
should, they're supposed to be paying the bed tax on them.
You could rent a
They may
guest
not,
house
Dave.
and bring your 6 cousins.
I don't think VRBO
included.
requires you to list the names of everybody staying there.
No, you don't have
It
to
just
list
says
names.
Bob Kerber, MasterCard number such and such, and his home address is 124 East 2nd Street, and that's all you need. And some of them will say how many in party, and you'll put 4, but you're not required to put down their names.
Well, why do we need their names?
we don't.
You know?
We don't, we
Okay.
took it out.
Okay.
I don't think they have it.
What are we taking out?
We took out, and all other persons in their party.
Number 13.
What about names and addresses?
Well, somebody, it would seem to me, you would want to know the person that's actually paying and what their address is. Some places actually require other information, which I think is intrusive.
But why,
We could take out the address too.
I think it's just the primary pay and
why
number
does
of
the
guests.
city want to know the names of all overnight guests?
Right.
and their
Well, I
addresses?
think
Yeah.
initially, that was not something, remember, I'm just a reader. But that was something that people said, well, how do we know who's in there? What if there's a fire? How do we know how many people to get out?
Well, knowing how many and knowing who each individual is 2 different things.
Well,
Right.
and if somebody's injured, you probably need to know their name, but anyway, we took it out. And I think it should be I think it was right to take it out because I don't think
I don't think
that
we-
information is available.
It's
I don't
in
think we
red.
did. We're still talking about listing names and addresses.
Well, if you don't,
You took out all other persons in their
okay,
party.
well, let's take that, the red can come out too.
Okay.
Okay, so now it reads, the register shall be maintained for all overnight guests. Well, what do you want it to say on the register?
I don't know why we need to keep a register.
I think it just should be who, the primary person that rented it and how many guests. That's
Yeah,
all we need
that's-
to know.
Okay, so you want to add then primary person,
Payee and number of guests for
Primary
occupancy
renter.
stated.
The city needs to
and,
know that? Is that what
No,
you're saying?
if there would be a fire or something, that person could pull up and say, this is a guy that rented it, he had 5 people, there should be 6 people in it.
so you want to put in there primary renter and all guests
Number
and number of
of
guests.
guests and occupancy
If the fire department
stated.
shows up, they need to know if there's 5 or 10 people in that building.
Okay, we can add that in. And
And
then,
take all the rest of
and
that.
then Alderman Jim here wants to tell you if there's a fire, won't the register burn out?
That makes perfect sense.
Yes.
Your owner or
One
manager is going to know the name of that person because they took their credit card information to pay for their room.
Well, the problem is, I mean, a lot of what you're talking about doesn't make any difference anyway. If there's a fire at a guest house and the fire department pulls it up, most of our guest house people that own it don't even live here, they're in another town or somewhere
It's a
else.
guest house.
So they're not gonna be on the scene when we get there, so we're gonna have to evaluate. Hopefully somebody comes out and says there's 3 people in the building, so we can go in there and do what we gotta do.
So none of this
So I mean,
does
as
you
far as
any
I'm
good at
concerned,
all.
that's all redundant. I mean,
Okay.
now if the person, if it's a true bed and breakfast, well, then that owner is there and
There,
says,
yeah.
I got 3 people on the 3rd floor.
Well, a lot of our guest houses too have, you know. they
Well,
have
let
somebody
let
there.
them live here, but let them don't.
But what
We're
I
almost done.
originally brought up about was, that would be per landmarks that a guest house, B&B, inn, whatever, has a manager within 10 miles of the location.
But if it's on fire, 10 miles, it takes a little bit.
What
At 3 o'clock in the morning, they
my
gotta go to the
thought
bathroom and put their
was
pants on to get there.
That contact shall be kept in an off-site facility, so in case of emergency, that manager or the owner, it's 10 miles away, we can call, how many is supposed to be in there? You got 6, okay, we're good to go.
I think that the primary renter's name is kind of important. And the reason it's important is because if there's a problem there and the place is vandalized, don't you want to know who the primary renter is?
Well,
Or
but
do
that's
you
the owner's responsibility, that's not ours.
Until it gets called in, and then now
want-
the
Somebody
city's gonna
calls
be
us and then we
involved.
say, who's in charge? And they go, let me give you an example. I was going to do this anyway. This is not something that I would think would ever happen here, but it did happen. And there was a person that rented a full house rental in California. It's been in the paper the last 3 or 4 weeks. And they asked, I think it was at Airbnb, for the name, and they had all these things. The owner of the property said, can't smoke, can't invite people from outside, can't do this, can't do that, can't do all these things. So he said, I accept that, and sent his money in and went to the place, and then got on social media, said, hey, everybody, party at 124 East 2nd Street, everybody show up. And everybody did show up. He didn't know who they were, but they invited friends, invited anybody, had over 100 people. Well, they didn't know each other, so eventually they got drunk and started fighting. This is a true story. And one of them had a gun and shot and killed 5 people. Now, the fact is that they knew who this guy was anyway. And they said, we're not really responsible for any of this because he signed the rules and then he broke the rules. So that's probably going through court out there. Who knows how long that'll take. But that's the reason why it might be a good idea to know at least who the primary renter is.
Emergency contact may come in handy. I know I'm reaching out for straws, but if we have that straw available, we don't have to go through this now. But let's say, unfortunately, mom and dad's up here at Herman, they came to Herman, and there's emergency back home. So the kid calls the law enforcement up and say, hey, my mom and dad's up there, where are they at? What's their name? George Burns. Where they're saying, I don't know. At least we could call the guest houses and B&B and say, hey, we're looking for a George Burns. Do you have it? We got 140 of them. It's gonna take a while. So I think that's another reason why.
But I mean, that is actually information that is available to the person on Airbnb and VRBO and the other ones, I think that would be okay, but the rest of it, it's hard to produce, and I don't know that we should go there.
In an off-site guest house time, when the manager's off-site, where is that contact information? Does the police department have that? If somebody has a problem with a guest house and the manager lives 10 miles away,
We have that in the system, for wherever the owner is that they list to contact, it's in our system.
you have that in your system?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Okay, I think we're,
I don't know what we did.
okay.
I don't,
What this will read now.
what did you say, Susan, the
A
primary?
register shall be maintained for all overnight guests and for
The party
The
renting the
primary-
building and the number of guests.
the primary renter and number of guests, so we won't leave that in?
But
That's all she had.
only the number of guests, not the names
Number
of
of
the
No,
guests.
the
not-
number of guests.
We're not doing a register, we're doing
No.
primary person.
Well, you
and
can
the
call it
number of
what you
guests.
want,
Okay.
but a register of, shall be maintained for the primary renter and number of, showing the primary renter and number of guests, or including. But we're
But
not.
is it necessary to provide that to the zoning inspector? I mean, shouldn't that be provided to the police upon request?
We can, yeah, I mean, why
I
would
mean,
it
I have no
not?
reason, see no reason why the zoning inspector would ask for it.
Could
Well,
just
I mean, then
say-
she knows there is one.
Says registration to be provided upon request. That way, in case
Yeah.
of emergency, the city law enforcement officer, the ambulance personnel, whoever could.
So basically, all it says now is a register shall be maintained, including the primary renter and number of guests. That's it. Okay? 14, the zoning inspector has a right to enter upon the property with reasonable notice. That is we already have that going, Dave. I mean, we can go on there.
Could we say for yearly inspection, a complaint or a safety issue?
Well, why would you limit it? I mean,
What's a reasonable notice? I mean, what do you mean?
Yeah, that's.
Okay.
24 hours.
I mean, what does that mean?
Well, what do you think?
Well, I don't know. I mean,
That's what we're here for.
has the right to enter up on the property with reasonable notice. Whose notice? Am I
Well,
gonna
they have
call her
to
and
tell
say, I want you to
people.
go look at Tom and Kathy's guest house because the grass ain't cut or
Well,
something?
what?
I mean, I
it's
don't
not-
understand what that
Chris, it
means.
has nothing to do with grass.
I'm just saying.
Well, but
I'm
it
using
doesn't
that for
have,
an
it doesn't
example.
give a reason for the request to begin with. Why would you ask for it? To hold
Yeah, I-
orders?
I would say it would be for a yearly inspection, a complaint or a safety
Could
issue.
be stimulated from somebody stayed there and they found violations that was unsuitable.
Well, that would be a complaint.
Yeah.
Well, what if,
We're asking to go
Dave,
in.
what are the stipulations for the search, for the municipal search warrant or whatever you're doing?
The advice that I would give to the city is that if the zoning inspector or his deputy ordinance enforcement officer thinks they need to enter into one of these businesses, that they would need to contact the business and get the owner's permission to come in. And if they don't get the owner's permission to come in, then they should apply to our municipal judge for one of our administrative search warrants, and handle it that way.
So shall contact owner
Owner manager.
I'd,
and ask for permission.
honestly, I would just strike it. I don't think it adds anything,
Okay?
you know,
What do you guys think? Strike it?
To me, it's just vague, and is, who decides that they're gonna do this?
Well, I think that it's based on what's going on the property. We've had, in the past, situations where we had fires set in terms of lead fires and so forth and abandoned. And they were just burning. Well, it would be nice to know if they're put out, if they're still flaming, if there's embers, if anybody's around. And right now, you're saying, well, they can't go on and find out.
Well, that wouldn't be the zoning inspector, that'd be either a fire department or law
Could
enforcement
be,
officer.
could be.
That's why I was.
As the zoning inspector, if suddenly a
I think-
person gets 3 inspections in a 6-month period, I wanna know who's ordering those inspections. I mean, who is responsible, who takes responsibility for that when all of a sudden we've got a lawsuit because we're harassing somebody and Dave has to deal with this?
Do you want to take it out then?
I'm just asking a question.
Well, I am too. Do you, we want to
I
take it
think
out?
we just eliminate it. There
Okay.
again, it gets back to common sense. If I'm a building inspector and I have a problem, I'm gonna call Susan and say, hey, we got a problem, and I need to inspect your business.
And if she says no, then
Then
I
we'll
guess we
take
go
the
to a
steps
judge.
pursuant through.
If she said, if the person says no, then whoever the,
And the, sorry, obtaining this administrative search warrant is something that if I get a call at 8:30 in the morning, we could have it by 3 that afternoon. I'm not talking about some big long
Weeks.
court proceeding.
and then that way everybody's protected.
Okay, but should this go through, well, so before we order any inspections, I want to know the procedure for ordering an inspection.
Well, we don't have one now.
Oh, okay.
We figured it out. And if there was a need for one, then the ordinance enforcement officer would contact the owner and ask to come in and look at the whatever. And if they said, come on, well, then we don't need to have this. And if they say no, and we thought it was important enough, we could go and get an administrative search warrant, which requires a judge, I guess, to sign off on. So we have to be, we're covered. We can get on there. But it doesn't just give us the, we have to have a reason. Is that right, Dave? So we
Well,
can't-
but my question is, who decides there's a reason? That's the one I'm getting to. This is
Well, I'm
not,
not-
this is not, should not be left to any one person to suddenly decide, we're gonna
Well,
inspect that property.
An example could be if a guest, I don't know if a guest would be inclined to do this, but if you go in there, or anybody goes in there and they see smoke alarms that aren't hardwired and the bottom thing is flipped open and there's no battery in there, and they say this is a problem, and they call City Hall and say, we were just at this guest house and it had smoke alarm with no batteries, then that would be a reason to,
Okay.
then the ordinance enforcement officer could, what I would advise is call that business and say, hey, you know, we've got a report that you may not be in compliance with our guest house code. I need to come by and inspect.
Reasonable
That's
That's
suspicion of
reasonable, see,
violation.
that's good, okay.
And if you went to,
As long as everything's documented.
you know, if you went to our municipal judge to ask for a municipal search warrant, he would ask the same question you're asking. He would say, well, why do we need this? You know, what's your probable cause to think that there's some violation of your code going on
And
here?
you'd
Otherwise,
say-
he wouldn't issue it.
And
Well,
you'd
then,
say,
see,
well,
that's the
somebody
point I'm
called.
getting to, you know.
You'd say somebody called and said that they saw the front of it open and there were no batteries in it, and it's smoke, it's required to have a smoke alarm. And he probably would say, okay, go look at it.
That's happened.
Okay, so we're taking 14 out completely. We have none of this verbiage that we talked about just now is in there. That's all assumed to be the rights. At least that's assumed to be the way it is. Okay, section 7, these are under applications, and I don't know, Dave, do you want to read them, or we can go through them, and upon initial application for and renewal, well, actually, there's a chart that I handed out that might be a good time to, that might help a lot here. Dave made a chart, do you have that? Everybody has it? That shows when each one of the applications is required. And I think that's basically what this is. So you can look at it and see that, Dave, you want to kind of explain it?
Well, code section 42730 has the guidelines for somebody who's applying for a conditional use permit. And if you've been to planning and zoning meetings, you know we've discussed all these things. There's the 8 factors before authorizing a conditional use permit. Planning and zoning, the board shall look at these 8 things. That what this is saying is that in addition to these 8 things, P and Z and the Board of Aldermen need to have in hand one of these guest house permits.
Okay. Should we relook at the 8 things? Because I think there's some of those things that are also in here. And one of them might be parking.
No, I don't think we need to change any of the 8 things. They're more vague. like the establishment of the conditional use will not endanger public safety, it won't injure the enjoyment of the property of neighbors, adequate utilities, roads, not impede normal and orderly development. You know, these are more subjective requirements.
So then we don't need to really fool with that, just use our new one.
So what's going to come first in order of, do they apply for the conditional use permit first, or do they apply for the guest house permit first?
What do you think?
This is a test.
They almost, they
I'm
almost.
curious as to, because you see people coming in here applying for permits.
Right, but they're, the conditional use permit, I guess is, it's more vague, but it's a $300 fee. And then this B&B one has all these more specific, this guest house one has all these more specifics. Does our code enforcement officer have any input, give any thought to that?
I would say the guest house permit or the B&B first, and then once that's looked at, then it's determined that they need a conditional use.
Well, I mean, if they need one as far as conditional
Right.
uses, but
But
will they,
They should come and ask about the guest house first, and then it be determined that they need the conditional use.
Well, doesn't this chart kind of tell us what we need? And it says, for new guest houses and B&B items, in R1, it says new guest houses not allowed. So we don't have to worry about it. But in R2 and R3, they need a conditional use permit, they need a business license, and they need a guest house permit. In C1 and C2 and I1, they don't need anything except a business license and a guest house permit. So depending on where they are when they come in to make their application, you can look at the chart and say, well, you're gonna need these three things.
and I'm with you on that, but you do see, I'm just on the chart for the new ones, conditional use permit first, that's a $300 fee, or guest house permit and inspection first.
Let's play this out. I have two different options. One is, you could say that in order to accept your conditional use permit application and get you set for hearing, you first have to have in hand the guest house permit. So that would require the person to have the code enforcement officer go to the property, look at all orders and make recommendations. Maybe they need 3 more smoke detectors or GCFIs or something like that. And so they go to all that trouble to get this guest house permit. Then they go to Melanie and say, okay, I'm ready for my conditional use permit application. They pay the $300, the notice is given, they have that hearing in 3 weeks. And choose my words carefully, for whatever reason, planning and zoning denies their conditional use permit application, or the board denies their conditional use permit application, in which case all of their efforts to get the guest house permit ahead of time was kind of a waste, right? Is that what you're getting at?
Yes, those are my...
And so maybe what we ought to say is that getting the guest house permit is, well, I think we can still say it's a condition of the conditional use permit, but the conditional use permit just won't be issued until we have the other. You know, not, let's see. Instead of saying upon application of the conditional use permit, the guest house permit shall be required, just have it say before a conditional use permit may be issued,
Okay, where's that?
the guest house permit shall be provided. Because then they can do the hard step first, and because they don't even know, like I said, the conditional use permit is sort of a subject. The conditional use permit is subject to the planning and zoning and board giving you their blessing or not. You'd like to know that before you go to the trouble to get the guest house.
So where are you, Dave, and what change are we making?
So section 7E, prior to issuance of a conditional use permit. For a bed and breakfast inn or guest house, the permit required by code section 420-50A shall be provided.
Okay. Any conditional use permit, does that impact any of the rest of it?
So section 8 says, any conditional use permit which expires prior to...
That's giving them an extension, isn't it? I mean, that's basically, remember it was important that we wanted all these to expire at the same time so we could enforce, we could enact this if we do. And so that really gives them an extension until February 10th. We might need, depending on the timing here, to make an adjustment on the February 10th date. But right now it's February 10th. And then section 9, what's that for, Dave? For any bed and breakfast inn or guest house for which a general business license was issued and which is operating as a permitted use, not with a conditional use permit at the time this ordinance is passed, the permit requirement for code section 420.050 shall become effective on June 1st. So that gives them time to get that done, and it goes to June 1st. Again, we can adjust these, we have to, and then the rest of it is on everything we pass. Publisher of the Hermann, City of Hermann ordinances shall be permitted to redesignate the section, et cetera, et cetera. That's boilerplate. Okay, is there anything tonight that we need to go back, or can we let Dave work on this? We're gonna let him take questions. Is there any other questions, I guess, from the board that we need to know now? Do we have questions while they're looking from the audience? Tom?
A couple of questions. The building permit legal,
Right?
is that a standard fee that the city assesses people?
For a building permit,
Yeah, just a regular building permit?
Trish, that's a standard fee.
There are fee structure, but I don't know exactly how.
Depending on what they're asking to do.
Yeah. You know what that range is?
No, $30 all the way up to 100 and something. I'm looking at these girls, not our department, but.
I mean, I wrote it up the other day, it was.
It depends on what they're inspecting.
Okay.
Yeah,
What the size of.
Foundation, electrical.
Yeah.
Right, well, that's fine, I was curious
And
whether
like
or not
for
there
new
was a
houses,
standard
it goes
fee.
by square footage.
Foot.
If they're building a new house, so it goes by the square foot of the new house.
Also, and I'm in favor of the majority of this, so, but don't most of these things, or shouldn't most of these items be applied to rental units as well as any other guest house or B&B, unoccupied B&B?
Yes, they should.
And is there any thought to having work done in that direction? Because as we know, people have died in rental homes from no smoke or no carbon monoxide.
But does say in here, the first paragraph, in any other non-occupied lodging establishment, a rental property would be a lodging.
Well, then that means that all of the building inspector would have to, I mean, the inspector would have to go to all rental places.
I'm not sure that's what that means, Dave.
Yeah.
Oh, it doesn't cover, I don't think, rental
Vacation
property.
rentals are.
Well, and then, if that's the case, it's basically the same type of operations, same type of
Sure.
business. You're renting, that's your business, whether or not you're renting full-time or part-time. It's the same business, and whether, and again, I'm not against these things, but it seems to me that you might be getting on the edge of a discrimination deal here, that you're requiring one group but not the other group. And I don't know, that's a
The more
question.
pressing one to me, Tom, is bed and breakfast. They should have smoke detectors and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
But at this point, we assume that the differentiation is the owner lives there for now. We're not gonna address that because the owner should want to have smoke detectors, fire alarms, carbon monoxide detectors. because they actually live there. We have
But if that were the case, then they would mean that they'd have to be on premise 24 hours while the guests are there too.
Well, I think that they are supposed to
babysit.
be.
Huh?
I think they're supposed to be.
Well, they're not gonna be there 24.
I didn't say that, but
It's
I
a
mean,
primary
you're supposed to
residence.
stop at stop signs too, but not.
I understand, sir. But I don't think there's any regulation that requires them to stay in the house 24 hours in a typical
I
bed.
thought it said be there while the guests are there or something.
I don't think so. Anyway, but,
I agree with
so you may want to think about those things, and then when it comes to the public hearing, I hope that whatever you're gonna propose to be discussed will be in print, that your copy and my copy are the same.
Well, they will, yeah.
Well, it wasn't tonight.
Well, it wasn't, it should have been, it
Yeah.
was sent out. So
Okay,
some
but I'm
people
just saying,
bring it.
I hope that. we can
Assuming
discuss this
everybody
anyway.
brings their copy to the next meeting, it will be published, it's required to be published, and so it should be out there for everybody with a
Okay.
copy that's actually published, what, 2 days ahead of time?
Well, by published, you mean, so let's go ahead and discuss that.
Okay.
What's the plan after tonight? So the next meeting is December 9th,
Right.
and so that's when we've noticed up our public hearing. And if the board wants to keep rolling on this before our end of the year break, we had discussed also putting it on the agenda as a bill to be passed, or at least first reading passed as an ordinance on December the 9th.
Right.
Which is what Mayor's talking about. If it's posted as a bill, and it'll be stuck up on the bulletin board and emailed and sent to the paper and everything, so everybody would have to have the same.
But didn't we have the same problem with the sign ordinance on the first reading and the second reading on public information and dissemination?
Yeah, there were some copies, some changes that got made right up until the meeting time, and so they literally printed them, given them to me from the mayor, printed them, threw them on the desk, so they didn't even have a chance to read them. So, yeah.
But we didn't approve anything then, I don't think that, I don't recall it, but I'm sure that.
No, there was a first reading, and then citizens got up and said, and then it got put off and rewritten
Yeah, it did have quite a bit of
to the
rewriting.
second reading.
Right, and the reason for that was because of the comments that the general public made, and they researched, and the decision was made to actually take some of that to heart and rewrite some of this to make sure we were in total compliance of anything that could possibly ever be brought forward. So there was a reason for doing that. It took quite a bit.
My advice to the city would be that if the draft or the version that we're talking about on Monday night at 7 o'clock is different than the draft or version that was put on the bulletin board and sent to the newspaper and all that, to have a stack of 25 of them sitting there for the public to come and look at. Now, that doesn't mean that we still can't change it or make edits between first reading and second reading.
Right.
But at least what you all are looking at, and what we're looking at would be the same.
Could we have those available even if we don't, even if they're not the same? I mean, could we have, because you don't have what they have.
Right.
Would it have been nice if you'd had available out there in the hallway?
Let me say this is a workshop. This is really not something that we'll have on the 9th, where people get a copy, they come in here, they read along with us. This really is a workshop for all the aldermen. For them to go over and talk about it, and us to do just what we did, go over it item by item. Now we'll come up with a better draft that has all these changes in it, and we'll do that moving forward. When we get up to the next time, then I believe Dave is correct. We will have the posted copy. It will be the one that we distribute, and everybody can pick a copy up coming in. You'll be given. That's really for you. That meeting is for you. Usually we do this the opposite way, but we got into a situation where I miscounted the number of days we're required to post in the newspaper, and we were short by 1 day. So in store, we couldn't do it tonight. We normally would have done it tonight and had the second meeting on the 9th, but we couldn't do that. So this actually turned out is a good opportunity for everybody to see what's going on and to see how this works. I know it doesn't look, it certainly looks like we're really trying hard to get this right, and we're taking everybody's thoughts into consideration.
And that's fine, it's just that because there's a lot of discussion now, it's completely, not completely, a lot of it has, verbiage has changed, okay? And so then that's why I was asking whether or not it's gonna be ready to go and talk about the next meeting.
And your workshop, remember when you worked on budgets, we had budget workshops, and we went over all kinds of stuff. What if we take this out and put it over here and do this, that, and the other thing? What if we don't? What if we do? And that's what this is for. So that's what we had tonight. We usually don't have this. I think it gives everybody an opportunity to see how this works.
We'll have updated copies of the revised ordinance with tonight's changes available on December the 9th for,
Well, you'll get a copy ahead of time to make sure.
well, I'm talking about the general public, and I think that's what Tom was alluding to. So if they come in on December the 9th, they can pick one up and follow along
Sure.
as it's being read and
And it
discussed.
is legally posted before then. We post the ordinances, the same time we post the agenda, so it'll be not only on a hard copy on the bulletin board at City Hall, it'll also be on our website, so anybody can view there as well.
But this was the workshop, so we had to do it this way. I think it worked out pretty good. But anyway, any other questions out there? Nancy?
I just wanted to say, well, I can't be here December 9th, so that's why I'm here tonight. I'm in favor of the majority of the stuff, just like Tom said. But I did want to point out that I thought when the occupancy thing came up, I was thinking that, you know, when a building, just a guest house becomes so large that you have maybe, I don't know, a set number, say 18, 20 on up, that it really ought to be considered a hotel rather than a guest house. And that's just my thinking, because you have so many people in there. And then I think it should probably be considered that it needs to be state inspected and licensed as a hotel. I don't know what all the regulations are there, but, and that was just one of my thoughts. And then also, just so you know, if a person, a lodging business, has a booking through Airbnb, Vrbo, Expedia, Hotels.com, any of that, it does come with usually just the person booking's name. But most of us do contact the person and ask their names. I don't want to see the names on register, but I just want you to know that it does happen. We do know who's coming and how many people are coming and stuff, even though it's through Airbnb or one of those platforms. And that's pretty much it.
Anybody else? Okay.
Back when we bought Black again, we were told that we could not find out if we could get a conditional use permit before we bought it. So we were gambling at buying it, we could still get a conditional use permit. And I thought that was pretty rotten, because we had to go spend $300 and go through the whole procedure. And it would have been fine to have a list of things, we would have had the checklist, that would have been fine, helpful actually. But then, why was that permitted, that we had to actually purchase a house before we could get a conditional use permit?
That's a problem, because it does say that it has to be done by the owner, that only the owner
Right.
can request a conditional use permit, so.
Well, in that case, I would think that the owner, the person selling it to you, could apply for the conditional use permit.
No, you couldn't do that because then it wouldn't have been transferable to the new
It's
owner.
not transferable?
Back then, I don't think it was transferable to the new owner.
I was under the impression now, if it's operating under a certain deal, it can continue that under.
Well, and then,
It would be different owners, so the conditional use.
Right, they have the opportunity to reapply.
Oh, right,
Reapply
that's
with
it.
their own name, yeah.
But then that would have been another $300. So now we're up to $600.
just to find
To
out.
gamble.
So
Yeah.
somehow there should be some
What say you on
restriction
that,
there.
Dan?
We can work on that.
Purchasing it.
That's
But,
what
I mean, it should be pretty simple for them to say, well, that's not going to be allowed here. Ours wasn't whether we
Well-
had smoke detectors or any of that. Ours was just that area.
Well,
Are you
just-
going to be allowed to?
I think it's important to remember that goes to planning and zoning, and the board can't really tell you
Well,
what
this
they're gonna
wasn't told by
decide.
planning and zoning, this was told by
For conditional use permit?
Marcia.
Yeah.
Should probably have the right to go ahead and request an inspection prior to your purchase, no different than buying a home, get a home
There was no
inspection.
options, it's just,
Yeah,
okay.
no, you couldn't
Well, you go to the current owner and say, hey, we want to buy this, but we want you to get this inspected. Or you.
That, but
It
you
had
still
nothing to
had
do
to
with
apply for conditional use permit, which then could get turned down just because the neighbors don't want it.
Well, if it doesn't pass inspections, you wouldn't buy it, so therefore you wouldn't need
The
to.
inspection,
Had
that's no
nothing.
big deal.
This
because
is
you know it
conditional
fixed
use.
that.
This is allowing them to use it for that purpose,
Right.
not fixing it up to use it for that purpose.
This would, part of that, in order to get
It
that,
would
they would
seem,
have to go through
it
an
would seem that we
inspection.
could, if we wanted to, allow the owner
That's this, they won't
to
do it.
request a conditional use permit, go through the process, and then just change the ordinance to say, if this happens within
If that'll work, sure.
30 days, it's transferable with no further fees.
Well, you might.
But we have to
just
change
Put that in there.
That's not the way it is.
Or just pay $600.
Yeah.
But
they-
then
Can't gamble.
6
I
months
don't-
later, somebody else got it fine and it was no problem. We just were not allowed. So there was some inconsistency going on.
And when was this?
13,
6 months later, what happened?
someone else, I think it's someone on 6th Street, was allowed to go ahead and find out whether or not they could have it before they purchased it.
We were both beings. We didn't do that.
No.
Okay.
I'm just saying, these things have happened and it should.
Is there any other questions back there? Anything else, chief? You don't have anything?
I want to say that there's some really good things in here, but all these guest houses and B&Bs have been running fine for years. I get a lot of guests that come into my store and, oh, you stayed at such and such, I've never had anybody complain about anything. And I can ask the police chief, how many complaints do you run on B&B and guest houses?
Very, if any.
Very few. I have this gut feeling that every time we turn around, we're coming down with more rules and regulations for this town, and again, I agree with some of that's in there, but, it just makes me think that we're addressing this for one entity that's been a problem, and everybody else in town's gonna suffer from it. So I just had to vent.
Well, I'll address your comment, Bruce. I think that safety is not here for a one person. I think the people that come here need to be protected. Your car has all kinds of safety things on it, and the fire department, above all people, has all kinds of fire codes and things that everybody has to meet. I don't think it's unreasonable to ask people to have smoke detectors and all this kind of stuff, and signs and so forth. We've taken a lot of the redundant stuff out, but this is for everybody's benefit. This is for all the people, and the people who wanted it. The people in the business asked for it. So that's how we got here. It wasn't something that Dave thought up, or Jim, or me, or Susan, or anybody else. All this stuff didn't come from us. It came from people that said, we do these things generally, but we'd like to have some rules, and we'd like everybody to follow the rules. So that's where it comes from. It's not picking on anybody, and it's got nothing to do with one person.
Well, I can tell you this past week, I've had several guest house people and telling me that, they weren't in favor of it, they weren't in question. I mean, I'm just venting how I feel about it, that's all. I just wanted it out there. I'm not 100% in favor of it. Like I said, there's some good things in here, but,
Well,
carry on.
I would think that a firefighter would, and I think you do see the need for these safety items and so forth. And we've tried our best to make them palatable and keep the cost down by eliminating some of them completely and remediating some of them. I don't think that when you get the copy back that we've made changes on, that you're gonna maybe feel as strongly as you do.
I hope I do.
And I had several people say the same thing, that they're glad to see this, that everybody's doing the same things.
So, anyway, I think that's our workshop for tonight. and we'll get this date, we'll work on that, and get a copy back to everybody, so you can see if the changes you want are actually the way you want it. And we have, now we're down to motions.
Oh, we're still on old business.
AT&T cell tower.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, we are. We're under, yeah, thanks, Dave. The AT&T cell tower,
I can tell you that Lee is reviewing the plans and talking to the developer on some questions he had, and Lee would probably be the one to talk to about where that stands at this point.
can we get it, kind of report from Lee?
Sure.
Because this is important, I would like to get this thing built. We just can't use our cell phones very well, so that's one thing. I think the case 69 electric line update, I believe Dave said he heard from the attorneys for Central Electric, and but he hasn't had time to actually review that. So that's where we stand on that, is that right?
Yep.
Okay. Franchise fee collection,
Hold on. You're on,
No, see.
are you on new business? Bob?
Yeah, I'm-
I've got some old business.
well, this is, okay, go ahead.
Okay. Last meeting, I brought up about raising tourism tax to 3% to help fund our tourism and everything. And I asked you guys to think about it. Does anybody here, is anybody here against that? I have a tourism meeting morning, Tammy and I'm going to talk with the tourism commission with this because it is, that's their area. And I'm pretty sure they're in favor of it, but I just want to make sure. Because if you're all in favor of it and they're in favor of it, the next meeting, I'm going to make a motion that we do this.
Yeah, because it needs to be done pretty soon.
Yeah,
Get it on
well,
the
I just,
ballot.
Tammy and I'll be talking to the tourism commission more about it, and, like I said, if everybody's in favor of it, I want to go ahead with it. So, does anybody have any objections?
No, I think, Dave, that when I gave my report, we
Yeah.
talked about it. And I talked about it, and the fact is, we now have financial information that should be helpful to actually developing some way, a reason for doing it. And it doesn't, like I said, it basically is kind of a win-win for everybody.
Okay, well, I think so too, so. And the other item, this is the third time I brought this up, and it will be the last, whether it works or not. Our community center in here is being very well utilized, and I like to see that. I like to see this building utilized by the public and everything, different meetings and stuff. But if you look out one of these windows out here, you can't see a damn thing because the parking lot is so dark. Can we please get a light out there? These ladies in here, Weight Watchers, the people from Lions have all been talking to me about, said, Dave, that parking lot's really dark out here. One lady fell from Weight Watchers out here, stumbled on this parking lot. We need a light out there. Like I said, this is the last time I'm gonna bring it up. I've done my job. So,
Mark?
Is the light right above the doorway, the big spot, working?
no, well, if it is not, it doesn't light up the back of that parking lot where everybody parks. You
Yeah,
can't see
people
over
that
there.
back in across the parking lot to get to their cars, it's very dark. And down here, they've got a light, but we don't have a light
No,
out
there's
here.
nothing out here. And this
About
time of
two
year,
lights,
it is
one
very,
here,
very,
one in
very
the middle.
dark out
It's
there.
the other side, I think they're talking about.
Yeah.
And I don't think that would be impossible to do.
No, Jesse just said, tell me where you want me to put the pole. I mean, he's ready to do it, we just have to tell him to do it. But if somebody falls out here in this parking lot because there's no light, that is gonna be an issue, so.
Can we bury that?
I'm sorry?
Line?
We bury the line? Yeah, the lines are all buried. I don't know, it might have to come from the street, so maybe
Okay.
overhead. And the parking lot, you can fall in the parking lot in broad daylight.
I know,
It's pretty rough.
I know, but not having light out there at night, I mean, like I said, we've got a lot of older people using this building at night.
Sure.
It's very dark out there, and I'm not what you call Tinkerbell when it comes to walking around out there anyway, so.
Okay,
Okay.
noted.
Anything else
Oh,
for old business? Any other old business? Okay, for now, new business, I have a couple of items. The franchise fee collection with Calabite, we're looking at that now to see what we have to do to kind of send them a bill. Because the original agreement said they pay a franchise fee effective December 31st and a pole attachment fee effective December 31st. I think we need to figure out if there's something else we need to do to make that happen, and that's what Dave's working on, along with Ken Hines. So I think that's right. I'm trying to plan ahead on the streets. When we get to next year, we will start to collect money on January 1st, and we will have money coming in beginning, I guess that's April or May or June. So, but we aren't going to have a whole lot for the first 6 months. And I'm wondering if we should have Joey McCliney come in and give us the option again of the possibility of a certificate of participation, where we could take the whole year in advance, get in advance. If we could use that money to do more streets and get a reduction in the cost per street, in other words, get a discount, we could easily pay for the 2% that he thinks that would cost. I'm not in favor of necessarily saying we should do it, but we could at least ask him to come in and talk about it.
The idea of doing this the way we did it was not to go into debt in any way. And I just, we've got to be very, very careful with that. I'm not against listening to him, but if there was going to be a pay-as-you-go deal, that's the way we set it
Okay,
up.
well,
I really don't want to get away from that.
That's fine. And the first year, we'll end up without doing much, because we probably won't get our 450. We'll probably get a couple hundred. So, all I'm saying is, we'll get it the rest of the years. It depends on how fast you want to get started on the hospital street and that kind of thing.
Well, I'd like to get it done too, but that's not the way we told the people it was going to happen.
Well, we
I
said
have to agree with you. I mean, I think we need to stick to our guns and say, this is what we told the people, and that's how we should do it.
Yeah,
Well, that's why I
don't
brought
wanna-
it up.
I don't want to give them the idea that we're doing something with this money we said we weren't going to do.
Okay.
That's,
I agree with you.
Well, we won't have him come in and talk to us then. I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention and see what you want to do. So that's pretty clear.
and one of the biggest things when we were trying to get past, well, how do we know you're going to use money for that? I said, no, it's the only way it can be used.
Okay?
We need to stay with that.
We won't have him in, and we'll just go on the pay-as-you-go plan. Maybe we'll get a bunch more in than we thought. Okay? And is there any other new business? All right, then we have motion. Should we accept the minutes?
Move to approve.
Second.
Made and seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried. Invoices for payment.
Make a motion to pay the bill.
Pay the bill. Made and seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion's carried. Outdoor seating permit renewal, BNR LLC, doing business as Doxy Slush, Nicholas and Brittany Renfro, 222 East First Street.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion made and seconded. Is everybody ready to vote?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That one passed. Caterers permit. Steeple View Manor, Friday Art Walk Tasting, Espresso Laney, December 6, 2019.
Move to approve.
Go ahead.
Second.
Okay, made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion's carried. Special event application, Christmas Wishes Event, Amphitheater, December 13, 2019.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion's made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Can I say something about this?
Sure.
Okay. It's approved. But anyway, what I wanted to say is this event is going to be put on by the community, for the community, and all of our aldermen and mayor are helping fund this to pay for the things that we're going to need. We have people that are going to make cookies and hot chocolate, and we're going to have a tree, and we're going to have wishes where you can put your wishes, adults or kids, and it's going to be a really nice thing for our community. So I hope everybody comes, and if you want to help, please contact me. So there.
You can pick that up in a minute. I think it's a great idea, and it should be a real nice thing for the community, so I hope everybody will come. I don't think we have anything else. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Made and seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We're adjourned. Okay, Dave. What's this?
Do you have stuff to sign?
Oh, that's a copy set.
Pretty quiet.
Yeah,
Me?
Keep me up too late or something?
it's late for me.
Hey, he's gotta go into deer